The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 61 Chapter 61 Hunting Yag 1 in Glory. The member limit in a group is 10. Each party member can create their own party with a limit of 10 parties in a group. After Ye Xiu joined the party, he saw that there was exactly 10 members in the party. He recognized the majority of them: Blue River, Bound Boat, Flower Lantern, Thundering Light, Lunar Grace, Returning Cloud. They all knew each other from before, so they weren't unfamiliar with him, and all went up one by one to say hello. He hadn't seen the other three before: Blowing Clouds, Spitfire class, Endless Flow, Launcher class, and one that you could tell was vulgar just from the name, Groping Haven, a cleric. TLC, Sacred Light Gropes You. Blue River introduced them one by one. There were 2 other parties with 20 people, but Blue River didn't trouble him with them. Actually, if they only wanted to kill the blood gunsman Yag, then a single 10-person party was more than enough. This time, they brought 30 people, which told the difficulties of the main problem: stealing the wild boss. It could even be said that Blue Brook Guild brought out all of their elites to this battle. All 30 of them could be found at the very front of the 10th server's current level leaderboard. Ye Xiu glanced over everyone and then suddenly said, "Did I take 1,000 Creations position?" Blue River was startled. He didn't think that Ye Xiu was attentive to this degree. It was true. 1,000 Creations was originally called over to get ready to hunt Blood Gunner Yag, but then he just happened to meet Lord Grimm. Blue River felt that this was another chance to make things clear and simply said, "Don't worry about him. We go on our own business." "When did the Blood Gunner respawn?" Ye Xiu asked Blue River. "We received the info 5 minutes ago, so we immediately gathered all of these brothers, and after a short while we hurried over," Blue River said. "We need all of these people," Ye Xiu laughed. Even for stealing, they didn't need this many people. With so many people surrounding the target, many people didn't even have a place to put out damage. "It's to prevent any incidents," Blue River messaged. Ye Xiu knew that this wasn't to prevent anything the boss would do, it was to protect them from other people. The most terrifying aspect in the game would never be NPCs. It would always be the players. If we were able to receive the info, then I'm sure Herb Garden and Tyrannical Ambition have also received it," Blue River said. Besides fighting over dungeon records, the 3 great guilds also paid attention to wild boss records. The guild had already reminded them of the importance of the wild boss records long ago. "They're already here." Ye Xiu turned his viewpoint and looked left and right. He discovered that not far from them there was another crowd of players wildly rushing. They were clearly running in the same direction as Blue Brook Guild's troops. DMN. Blue River turned his viewpoint and saw it too. He vaguely identified a few names. "They're from Herb Garden." Ye Xiu couldn't help but worship him. He looked at some of these ids and they all looked the same to him. For Blue River to actually be able to recognize these names, he deserved to be called an experienced rival. They were quite familiar with each other. When Blue River recognized the other side also recognized Blue Brook Guild. Blue River quickly received a message from Herb Garden's 10th server guild leader Plantago Seed. "Old Blue, if you have any inner quality to you, then you can clearly see that we've arrived here first." Both sides knew Blood Gunner's location. Currently, Herb Garden was clearly closer to it. Their levels and equipment were about the same. Blue Brook Guild's hopes to take the lead weren't great. "Get lost," Blue River replied. Wild bosses were never first come first serve, but Plantago Seed loved to say such nonsense. "How many people did you bring?" Plantago Seed asked. "Around the same as you," Blue River said. "Want to team up?" Plantago Seed said. "What do you mean by team up?" "You and I have both arrived, so Tyrannical Ambition shouldn't be far behind. We both send a few players out to block them, and then we both rely on our own power to split the boss. How about it?" "Okay," Blue River replied without thinking the matter through. "How many people?" "Half." "Okay." After half a minute, "Where are your people?" Plantego Seed asked. "Yours," Blue River replied. "I've chosen them. I'm waiting for you." "I'm the one waiting for you." Another half a minute of silence. "It looks like you don't trust me. I'll go look to team up with Tyrannical Ambition then," Plantego Seed said. "Go ahead. Actually, I've already come to an agreement with Tyrannical Ambition. They're in front waiting to ambush you. Be careful," Blue River replied. Plantego Seed didn't send another message. Both felt helpless. This wasn't the first time they had met. The three great guilds had fought with each other for many years, so they all understood each other. If they truly wanted to cooperate, then they always tore at each other. It wasn't possible for them to reach a conclusion in these few words. None of them trusted each other. It could be seen that in these few years, they weren't lacking any fighting, dueling, or causing havoc amongst each other. Blue Brook Guild was currently a bit slower than Herb Garden, but that small amount didn't count for anything. Even if Herb Garden arrived there first, they might not immediately pull it and fight. If they were attacked from behind, what would they do? Don't look at how their messages to each other were so friendly. If they truly wanted to fight, they wouldn't show any mercy. Games were like this, happy and painful. The two crowds maintained their distance and they reached the Blood Gunners' location one after another. However, when they got there, another crowd of players were already standing there. Tyrannical Ambition's players were unexpectedly even faster than them, except Tyrannical Ambition still hadn't acted. At this moment there were a crowd of unknown players battling the Blood Gunner, but with just a look, it could clearly be seen that these were just random parties who just happened to discover this boss, trying it out. Blue River looked for a bit and then decided. They're courting death. Blood Gunner Yag was covered in a white leather armor. Its ash-colored face didn't show any expression. Clearly, it was also an undead monster. It held a revolver in its hands and it moved incomparably quickly, running around everywhere and firing. At that instant, the crowd of randomly put-together players were all hit and cried out in terror. They had no way to resist and the hunters became the prey. Tyrannical Ambition had arrived long ago, but they just stood on the side, quietly watching the scene. They stood firmly just outside of the Blood Gunners' attack range. After Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild arrived, they acted the same as Tyrannical Ambition. They didn't care about whether these players lived or died. They didn't even look at the Blood Gunner. Their attention was all focused on each other. Seeing that the other two guilds had arrived, someone from Tyrannical Ambition quickly walked out and headed towards Blue Brook Guild. "Does he want to negotiate with us?" Blue River silently thought. He couldn't help but look at Herb Garden. They weren't moving either and looking at their stance. They were probably paying attention to that Tyrannical Ambition player who was walking towards Blue Brook Guild too. That player eventually walked over. Right when he was about to go greet him, he heard that player shout, "Lord Grim, why are you here?" "To see the excitement," Ye Xiu replied. "That place isn't too good. Come, come, come. Why don't you come over to our place?" As it turned out, this shameless person was Endless Night. Blue River's lungs were about to burst with rage. He was simply treating them as if they were air. "Our place is no good. FCK your place then." This entire area was a desolate graveyard. There were a few weeds, dead trees, crooked gravestones, and damaged coffins. Every place was the same. What good or bad? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 62, Chapter 62, Hunting Yag 2. "Isn't everywhere the same?" Ye Xiu replied, appearing somewhat well-behaved. "But in a bit, some things might happen there, so it'd be best to stay out of the way," Endless Night said. Blue River's heart couldn't help but thump. These words were obviously spoken for Blue Brook Guild to hear. Analyzing it on the surface, these words suggested that Tyrannical Ambition and Herb Garden had already joined hands. Blue Brook Guild would have difficulty negotiating with them. "Oh, how come I heard that that place wasn't safe?" Blue Brook Guild's bound boat spoke out. "Psychological warfare. Reverse psychological warfare. Reverse psychological warfare. When the three great guilds competed, they often ended up in this situation. These annoyed Blue River, so he liked to remain still with his face blank and let others deal with the problem. "Oh, so it's like this. Don't tell me Herb Garden is plotting against us. Wouldn't it be best for us to join hands?" Endless Night said. To join hands or not to join hands, that was the question. Blue River felt his balls ache. He directly sent messages to both guild leaders. "What are you guys doing? Both of you come over." Herb Garden's guild leader Plantago Seed replied, "I haven't done anything." Tyrannical Ambition's guild leader Cold Knight replied, "Didn't I already send someone over?" Both of them weren't cooperating. Blue River's head hurt. Truthfully, he hoped that all three could send representatives and let everyone just play rock, paper, scissors, but he knew that wasn't going to happen. Even if everyone agreed, in the end, they'd definitely turn hostile. The winner would be like a cicada stalked by a mantis, unaware of the oriole behind. The winner would just be waiting for someone to stab him in the back. He didn't know how many times this sort of situation had happened. In the end, all of the winners were extremely cautious and then suddenly tossed from side to side repeatedly by everyone. What had originally been agreed on was the same as no agreement. What was the point in wasting that time? The three great guilds all paid a lot of attention towards their outer image. Their words held enormous weight and their reputation was outstanding. But when the three competed, whatever despicable, shameless methods existed, all came out. Trust and promises were all the same as floating clouds, all because their true interests laid in winning against the other competitors. Even if everyone agreed that whichever side did the most damage was the winner, Blue River wouldn't dare trust their word. He did trust that once one side fell behind, that side would definitely cheat them. He knew that every time they hunted a wild boss, a lot of players would die. In this instant, Blue River cherished his memories of dungeons. Comparing them with wild bosses, no matter how difficult the dungeon was, they all felt so comforting. They never had any sincere cooperation with each other. They would only scout each other out or guard against each other. This was the relationship between the three great guilds. Seeing that Endless Night was still chattering on, Blue River was ready to pull out his sword. In fact, when he called out for the two guild leaders to come, he didn't have any good intentions either. In any case, everyone was shameless, so the two didn't dare come over and stayed where they were. The two didn't come over, only an annoying Endless Night. Blue River felt he might as well just kill him and be done with it. Everyone already understood their relationship towards each other anyways. But he suddenly heard Ye Xiu say, "Isn't that 1,000 creations?" Blue River heard this and was startled. He turned around to look. One player with magical fluctuations under his feet carried a battle pole and rushed forward without saying anything to smash at the boss. Blue River didn't feel like taking care of him. He was just an undisciplined, unorganized individual. "I'm going to help him." Blue River didn't think Lord Grim would suddenly throw out these words and then rush forward. This was something that he couldn't control even if he wanted to. Hey, why are you running? I'm not done talking." Endless Night still talked. Blue River suddenly pulled out his sword with a sword draw and slashed towards that guy. He didn't know how, but Endless Night had already prepared for this and rolled backwards, avoiding the sword. "Oh, so the magnificent guild leader sneak attacks," Endless Night mocked. Blue River moved. Immediately, several players beside him were about to rush forward and act, but Endless Night had already escaped. Tyrannical Ambition also immediately had people approach, so Blue Brook Guild immediately withdrew. They didn't want to clash with Tyrannical Ambition. Herb Garden was still beside them. The three great guilds restricted each other. Intertwined, none of them dared to act blindly without thinking. While they were stuck in a stalemate, more players died fighting in the fields. One party, which was originally a 10-member party, had already fallen to 5. Half had died. "Why are you all standing there watching? Hurry up and kill." After Lord Grim rushed close, Ye Xiu heard these 5 members yell. They clearly didn't understand the situation and didn't understand these 3 great guilds' entanglement. But no matter how entangled these 3 great guilds were, these 5 were destined to die. If they were unable to kill the blood gunner, they'd die. If they killed the blood gunner, they'd die an even worse death. The 3 great guilds didn't act out against them because they belonged to the former. They didn't have the strength to kill the blood gunner. Join the party. At this moment the 5 yelled to Thousand Creations. Thousand Creations was the 6th player on the field that joined the fight. They immediately sent him an invite, but that guy actually ignored it. "I'm coming in." After Lord Grimm rushed to the front, Ye Xiu yelled while swiftly leaving Blue River's party. What is he thinking? Blue River was a little lost. Lord Grimm rushing forward made him lost. Then he suddenly left the party. Seeing that he wanted to join that random party made him even more lost. If Lord Grimm is killing the boss, are we going to steal or not? Bound Boat suddenly said. Blue River stared blankly. Could it be that this guy wanted to use the fact that each of the great guilds regarded him highly and wouldn't steal the boss from him? This thought was rather naive. Although the 3 great guilds all regarded him highly and were willing to back down on many issues, this was only when the 3 great guilds took the initiative too. But at this moment, he was the one to take initiative and use the 3 great guilds' intentions to force them to retreat. This was a completely different situation. No one would be willing to accept this sort of coercement, to say nothing of the 3 great guilds. Although they were cautious, modest, and respectful on the outside, if you schemed against them like this, who would be able to take this? Thousand Creations maneuvered around everywhere, waiting for an opportunity. The 5 players were basically being chased and attacked by the blood gunner. But once Lord Grimm entered the fray, everything immediately changed. The fast-moving blood gunner had unexpectedly been accurately captured by him. With a sky strike, the blood gunner had already been knocked into the air. This was an attack that Thousand Chances hadn't found the opportunity to perform, even after he had joined the battle for so long. Falling Flower Palm. The blood gunner was blown away. This was a wild boss and was even stronger than hidden bosses. Sky Strike hadn't knocked it very high into the air. If it was someone else who had executed Falling Flower Palm, then it might have even been a problem for them to complete the aerial attack. The blow-away effects would be increased in an aerial attack. The higher up they were, the greater the increase. Because the blood gunner hadn't been knocked up very high, the additional effects from the aerial attack were already the limit. His figure shook and suddenly 2 Lord Grimms appeared. One was in the original place while the other had flashed behind the blood gunner. Shadow clone technique. The body behind the blood gunner was obviously the real one. He immediately grabbed the blood gunner and threw. Grappler skill, fling. The blood gunner was once again thrown away. Herb Garden's players were suddenly in a commotion. Why was this blood gunner getting closer and closer to them? The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 63 Hunting Yag 3. The blood gunner's aggro obviously couldn't run onto Herb Garden. In fact, up until now, it hadn't taken a lot of damage. After taking 3 hits from Lord Grimm, Sky Strike, Falling Flower Palm, Fling, its aggro had already ignited onto Lord Grimm. Once it was thrown to the ground, it didn't fall down. It rolled away and had already gotten up. This skill was called Quick Recover. It was a common passive skill similar to Swift Run and Roll. After learning it, it could be used. The moment the user fell onto the ground, the user would immediately use a roll. In this way, the user wouldn't fall down and would instead directly flip over. This skill required a certain amount of technique to use. When the user touched the ground, the user had to immediately use a roll to quick recover. There were also a few skills where quick recover didn't work. For example, the battle mage's circle swing, the grappler's back throw, and the sharpshooter's punisher all negated the quick recover skill. The Blood Gunner could also quick recover, but it only now had a chance to. At this moment, after eating 3 of Lord Grimm's attacks, it directly rolled over with a quick recover and raised its gun, ready to shoot. A gun sound rang out and the Blood Gunner's right hand, which held the gun, moved backwards. Following the spark that sprayed out from the gun muzzle, a second gun sound rang out. DMN! An herb garden player cried out in fear and immediately crouched down. The bullet scraped by his head. Then he heard a second sound, DMN, from behind him. The second player didn't have time to dodge, and the bullet hit him in the center of his forehead. Blood violently blossomed out and his life directly fell to half. Herb Garden's clerics immediately went up to rescue him, but at this moment, no one responded in time when the Blood Gunner suddenly cocked its gun towards them. But from Blue Brook Guild's point of view, they could all see it clearly. Just now, after Lord Grimm flung the Blood Gunner, a gun somehow appeared in his hands. That first gun sound wasn't from the Blood Gunner. It was from Lord Grimm's gun. This gun hit the Blood Gunner's right hand, causing the Blood Gunner's gun to swing backwards. Was this a coincidence, or was it on purpose? Blue Brook Guild's players didn't know, but they did know that this shot was both an attack and a defense. It not only hit the Blood Gunner's hand, it also neutralized the possibility of the Blood Gunner returning fire. As for the headshot at the Herb Garden player, that was probably pure coincidence. But this coincidence still made Blue Brook Guild's players extremely happy. What is he trying to do? While everybody was jeering at Herb Garden's player who had accidentally been shot, Bound Boat frowned, unable to see through Lord Grimm's intentions. Is he really thinking of taking down the Blood Gunner in front of all of us? Flower Lantern also muttered. Both of them moved towards Blue River. DMN, an aerial circle swing, amazing. The two had just arrived in front of Blue River when they heard him say this. The two were completely helpless. Was this really the time to be admiring his skill? After waking up Blue River touched on this issue but also helplessly said, "If the other guilds don't move, how can we?" Bound Boat was startled. Could it be that this guy wants to use this time when our 3 guilds are restricting each other instead of impolitely stealing? Bound Boat said. Blue River looked left towards Herb Garden, and looked right towards Tyrannical Ambition. He saw that the other 2 guild leaders were also eccentrically looking left and right. Clearly, they were also like him and observing the other 2 guilds' movements. Sure enough, at this moment none of the 3 guilds dared to advance forward. This was because whoever advanced forward would become the mantis preying upon the cicada. But there was also a large oriole behind them. No, 2 of them to be accurate. Blue River discovered this deadlock really was awkward. He immediately messaged Herb Garden and Tyrannical Ambition. "You two, are we really going to just watch this boss get split?" "Old Blue, you finally learned treachery," Plantago Seed replied. "I don't want to. It'd be better if your Blue Brook Guild hurried over and captured the boss, while my Tyrannical Ambition waits outside the range and keeps the situation under control. What do you think?" Tyrannical Ambition's Cold Knight replied. Blue River was speechless. Herb Garden and Tyrannical Ambition didn't trust him at all. And the most important factor that influenced these 2 groups' judgments was that they didn't understand Lord Grimm's strength. They didn't believe that Lord Grimm could take down the Blood Gunner. But now that he calmed down and thought about it, he also felt that this was an issue too. Although he and Lord Grimm had set a dungeon record before and directly saw Lord Grimm's strength, although Lord Grimm relied on his outstanding skill to deal with the Blood Gunner, no one could solo the Blood Gunner at this level. Even a peak professional player wouldn't be able to, either. This was because their mana definitely wouldn't be able to keep up. With the Blood Gunner's life as well as the player's DPS at this level, there was no way anyone could defeat the Blood Gunner with no mana. Even if they carried a full inventory of potions, they still wouldn't be able to. Just seeing how Lord Grim put out damage at such a high tempo, they knew that beginner villages level 1 potions certainly weren't enough. Skills couldn't be used without mana. If a player couldn't use skills, only relying on normal attacks definitely couldn't take down the boss. When skills and normal attacks were compared, apart from more damage, the most important difference were their crowd control effects. For example, Sky Strike's knock-up, Dragon Tooth's short stun, Falling Flower Palm's blow away, Circle Swing's no quick recover throw. These sort of special effects couldn't be made by normal attacks and had an effect on controlling the opponent's movement. Thinking of this, Blue River suddenly calmed down. Sure enough, Herb Garden and Tyrannical Ambition were the greater threats. He couldn't help but glance left and right at each of them. The 5 normal players in the field were still regarded as dead people, so much so that Blue River didn't even think that Lord Grim would associate with them. When Lord Grim left, he had no way to prevent it, so he could only call 1,000 creations to come and join the party. Perhaps Ye Xiu was the only player to notice these 5. These chain attacks, which these 5 players were incapable of doing, frightened these players dumbstruck. Lord Grim suddenly used a circle swing, throwing the blood gunner in front of these 5 players. Still watching, "Attack!" Ye Xiu yelled. The 5 players woke up and immediately went up and greeted the gunner with their weapons. "Don't attack randomly, listen to my commands." While Ye Xiu yelled, Lord Grim's attacks hadn't stopped from beginning to end. These foolish 5 players finally discovered something. Lord Grim, this person is Lord Grim. The 3 great guilds weren't the only ones that noticed Lord Grim. Even players from Happy Internet Cafe were astonished when they saw Lord Grim's famed name. These 5 players, who had invited Lord Grim to join the party and watched Lord Grim's fight with the blood gunner, just now noticed Lord Grim's id on top of his head. The Lord Grim that completed 3 first clears in Beginner Village. The Lord Grim that led Blue Brook Guild to a new clear record in Frost Forest. Berserker, Gore Cross. Lord Grim said while using Dragon Tooth to stab the blood gunner. The Berserker didn't react slowly and immediately brandished his greatsword. While the blood gunner was still stunned and unable to dodge, he slashed and the tip of his sword drew a cross. A cross of blood swung out. Brawler, Sand Toss. Ye Xiu yelled, and at the same time, a sky strike knocked the blood gunner into the air. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 64. Chapter 64. Hunting Yag 4 brawlers belonged to the fighter class and were street fighters that use underhanded methods to win. For example, Sand Toss threw sand, dirtying the target's clothing in a despicable manner. At this moment, hearing Ye Xiu's call, this brawler immediately threw sand at the blood gunner. Ye Xiu started sweating. He didn't think that this player was a complete noob. He immediately instructed, "Sand Toss whenever it's off cooldown and throw sand at its face." This was Sand Toss's true usage. Sand Toss had a hidden effect that occurred when sand was thrown into the target's eyes. It had a chance to blind the target. Because it was a hidden effect, the chance to blind and the blind's duration wasn't directly shown by the system. However, through player testing, the lowest level Sand Toss had a 50% chance to blind and lasted 4 seconds. But when the skill was maxed, it had a 100% chance to blind and lasted 8 seconds. This effect was truly terrifying. In Glory's early days, brawlers ruled the world with Sand Toss. Whenever they encountered anything displeasing, they would throw some sand at their face. Under the effects of blind, the player's screen became pitch black, unable to see anything. Brawlers could use this opportunity to attack despicably and lowly while their target was in such a state. But nowadays, players found quite a few ways to deal with Sand Toss. The simplest way was that when the Sand Toss was thrown, the character turned his or her viewpoint. Look up, look down, look left, look right, any of them worked. Although Sand Toss damaged them, it was much better than that terrifying hidden effect. But the unequaled counter to sand toss was a type of accessory: eyeglasses. This toy was the same type of item as the mithril pendant that Ye Xiu possessed. It had no attributes and was purely decoration. However, these eyeglasses could nullify sand toss's hidden effect, turning it into nothing but fleeting clouds. The most hated item among brawlers were these eyeglass-type items. Fortunately, NPCs wouldn't shamelessly wear eyeglasses as if they were refined people. Blinded NPCs would lose their sense of direction, unable to find their original aggro target. It might not even be able to figure out the direction to hit back players that bullet it. Ye Xiu's purpose was obviously to let this brawler attempt to blind it, but who knew that that guy was too much of a noob? His sand toss was unexpectedly thrown at the blood gunner's body. Ye Xiu had no idea how this guy got to level 23, 2 levels higher than him. Brick Buster. Ye Xiu continued to patiently instruct this brawler. Brick Buster was the system's official name for the skill. Ye Xiu was afraid that his noob wouldn't know the popular term for it, so he used the official skill name. Among players, this skill was known as brick. Correct. Found high and low, far and wide, the brick that people in street fights would often use as a weapon. In Glory, brawlers' bricks could be used to smash and throw, extremely formidable. Apart from this, the skill also had a special effect. It had a 50% chance to cause the target to be dizzy for 3 seconds. However, in order to create this effect, the brick had to be smashed onto the head. This brick also had a hidden effect. When the brick is a back attack and also hits the head, the dizzy chance becomes 100% and lasted 4 seconds. Ye Xiu didn't have time to explain in detail to this brawler. Fortunately, the brick's dizzy special effect wasn't a hidden effect, so the skill tooltip described this. Evidently, the brawler noticed this point, and his brick headed towards the blood gunner's head. Regretfully, instead of using his hands to directly smash its head with the brick, he threw it. The flying brick's damage was reduced by half. The chance to dizzy was reduced by half. The dizzy duration was reduced by half. Moreover, this brick flew askew. Idiot, pick up the brick and smash the back of its head. Another person acted on behalf of Ye Xiu and directed. Brick's hidden effect wasn't a secret. The newbie brawler immediately responded sincerely, "Okay, okay." Raging Flames, attack. Ye Xiu commanded the elementalist. Raging Flames soared up. Ye Xiu nodded his head, satisfied. He wasn't as noobish as that brawler at least. Facing the boss blood gunner, the low-leveled Raging Flames knockup was small, but Ye Xiu had already controlled Lord Grim to follow up. Collapsing Mountain. Ghostblade use a sword soul. Sand toss. Raging Flames. Ghost slash. Ye Xiu succinctly and quickly directed them. The 5 players who had originally been regarded as dead players suddenly discovered, was dealing with the blood gunner really this easy? Originally, they tried every possible way, but they couldn't hit the blood gunner. Now, it was pretty much just a sandbag. Sword slashes, brick smashes, magic flashes, they all hit. The experienced players among the 5 saw that this was all because of Lord Grim. This guy would use his attacks exactly where they controlled the enemy. Moreover, his commands on when to use the skills controlled the enemy well. As a result, surrounding it in this beautiful rhythm, they happily dealt damage to the blood gunner. The blood gunner wasn't powerless to retaliate, but its attack target was always Lord Grim. Ye Xiu had already figured out its attack pattern, so he always dodged his attacks perfectly. In addition, the damage never spread to the other party members. In an instant, a chaotic party that had originally been regarded as dead bodies transformed into a well-coordinated party under Ye Xiu's lead. The 5 players used their skills contentedly, but Ye Xiu didn't relax a bit. He understood clearly that a single mistake in his play or a small misjudgment in his leading would completely reverse the situation. The 3 great guilds that had just been standing there watching were already completely dumbfounded. Each of them had majestically prepared dozens of players as reinforcement just in case. But at that instant, the six-player party was hunting down the boss, yet they didn't dare advance. Each and every one felt ill at ease and glanced left and right. The more they looked, the more foolish they seemed. "See, this is the leading I wanted to see," Tyrannical Ambition's Endless Night yelled. "What are you being so happy for?" his guild leader Cold Night said. So Lord Grim was actually this terrifying. Herb Garden always had Lord Grim in their thoughts, but they still hadn't seen his strength. Now that they had seen it, the guild leader Plantago Seed was completely stunned. If this continues, then the Blood Gunner really will be killed off by this guy. Blue Brook Guild's Flower Lantern said to Blue River. As a result, the three guild leaders began twisting strangely again. They turned in one direction, then in the other, observing the other two's reactions. They all understood what everyone had to do at this moment. Kill off those additional players. Don't touch Lord Grim. If they attack Lord Grim, then lend a hand, Blue River commanded. "Help who?" someone still asked. "Idiot, don't tell me you think we should help those two bunches of bastards," Blue River said. Everyone understood. "Take the empty spot in our party and immediately give it to Lord Grim," Blue River said. Everyone felt a bit solemn. There obviously wasn't any empty spot right now, but there would be one soon because someone had to die. The person that died would respawn in town and automatically leave the party. The three great guilds all began moving at practically the same time. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 65, Chapter 65, Hunting Yag 5. "Oh, those people want to help," the brawler suddenly said. His voice carried a tone of pleasant surprise. Ye Xiu sighed. This guy truly didn't understand the situation. These guilds weren't here to help. They were here to kill, steal. They hadn't acted before because these guys weren't even worthy of being stolen from. The Blood Gunner would have eliminated them. "Leave," Ye Xiu said. "What?" The brawler was unable to make heads or tails of his command. The other four players were actually noobs too. If they weren't noobs, then they would have known about the Blood Gunner's strength. They wouldn't have mobbed around it and killed themselves. But they were better than that noob of a brawler, so they at least saw that the situation was far from good. Those guys over there didn't move early or late. When they saw that they were fighting the boss smoothly, only then did they suddenly move. Help. Providing help in the hour of need was called help. But right now in this situation, only God knew what they were up to. "If you don't run, then you're looking to die," Ye Xiu said. "Then we fought for nothing," the party's berserker said. He noticed that there was something wrong with the situation. But if they ran now, then why did they fight so hard before? "I don't know yet," Ye Xiu said. The five players were all at a loss. "But if you don't leave now, then it'll be too late," Ye Xiu said while Lord Grim's attacks continued. The three great guilds rapidly drew near. The long-ranged classes such as the gunners had already began aiming their guns. "Run!" Finally, one of the five players took the lead and ran. The three great guilds didn't care about these guys. Because the three guilds left some space to guard against each other, they didn't completely surround the boss. Seeing that these five were running, they didn't send people to kill them. Instead, they were all observing the other guilds' movements. Those were main opponents. All three guild leaders practically shouted at the same time, "Stop!" The numerous players urgently halted and all watched each other. The Blood Gunner was almost in front of them, but if they rushed up to surround the boss, then what would they do if the other guilds behind their backs raided them? All three guild leaders were pondering over this. This was because the battle on the field still continued. Those five players had ran halfway when they suddenly realized that Lord Grim wasn't behind them. Looking back, they saw that Lord Grim was still battling with the Blood Gunner. What's the meaning of this? The five players were puzzled. They just weren't familiar with the game. It's not like they didn't have a brain. This player told them to run, but he himself stayed. His behavior was odd, which made them unable to tell whether he was good or bad. As a result, they couldn't help but stop moving. "Run farther, it's dangerous over here," Ye Xiu suddenly messaged them through the party channel. "But they haven't come to kill us," the noob brawler said. "Trust me." Ye Xiu typed out 2 words this time. These noobs were too clueless. If they were Blue River level players, they would have all been stunned to death. To be able to take the time to type during an intense battle with the boss, how fast was his hand speed? The new brawler couldn't help but begin to run while calling out to his companions, "Hurry and run." The other 4 hesitated, but 2 of them followed the new brawler. The other 2 still stayed in their original spots. They were still a bit skeptical over Ye Xiu's words. They felt that he was trying to intentionally get rid of them. Seeing that the 5 moved differently, Ye Xiu could only feel regret towards the 2 skeptical players. He didn't have the time to explain to them. His mouth had been used to lead them in battle the entire time. He also didn't have the time to type. The previous 2 words he had typed out were already risky, and the 6 words before almost messed up his playing. Should the long-ranged classes try attacking? Blue River consulted his subordinates. They wouldn't advance forward yet. The long-ranged classes would first do some damage. We can't guarantee that we won't accidentally hit Lord Grimm. The long-range classes all started sweating. The blood gunner's speed was his forte. Fighting with it required high tempo and fast movements. At this moment, Lord Grimm and the blood gunner were flashing around everywhere. Who knew which target their attacks would hit? "What is this guy thinking?" Blue River said gloomily. On the other side, Herb Garden's Plantago Seed had already yelled out, "Hero, add your party to my group. All of the drops will belong to you guys." DMN. Blue River secretly shouted at Plantago Seed's treachery. If the party joined his group, then the previous damage they did would count towards their group. He himself hadn't thought of doing this. "Brother Grimm, join my side. The items are all yours." Blue River immediately stepped forward. He felt that he was somewhat closer to Lord Grimm. With the same conditions, Lord Grimm didn't have any reason to not join their group. "Join my side. The rewards are all yours. I'll also gift you 20 white wolf bristles." Tyrannical Ambition's Endless Night also yelled. He thought that Ye Xiu had some sort of special indulgence towards white wolf bristles. Lord Grimm, don't trust him. How many times would you have to run Frost Forest to get 20 white wolf bristles? Blue River immediately yelled. "We have 20 here," Plantago Seed yelled. Bound Boat murmured to himself. Could it be that this was this guy's true aim? Blue River also had a headache. Really, this guy. He completely didn't know how to talk things over with emotion. Did he really have to turn everything into a business deal? Lord Grimm still indifferently attacked the monster. As a result, the 3 guilds all felt that the price tag wasn't enough and continued raise the price. The 2 that hadn't run away were all already stunned. The "all of the items will belong to you guys" alone already made their hearts speed up. They had never heard of the other items that the 3 guilds promised, but if they dared to bring them out, then they were clearly valuable items. The 2 players were anxious. They were just itching to respond on behalf of Lord Grimm, but the 2 quickly recovered. Even if he agreed, then it didn't matter, because currently the party leader wasn't Lord Grimm. Joining a group or receiving a group invite were all the party leader's rights. The 2 immediately looked at the party list. The leader was that new brawler. The 2 immediately typed out in the party channel, "Come back. Why didn't you 2 run?" The new brawler replied, "Run my ass. These few guilds are giving out conditions over here. They're letting us join their group. Afterwards, the equipment will all go to us and they'll also give out a bunch of valuable items. Hurry up and come back, party leader." The 2 excitedly spoke incoherently, scrambling to send the message. "So there's this." The new brawler surprisingly understood. Once he heard equipment, his eyes turned into stars. He immediately ran back. The other 2 who had seen the message also excitedly moved too. The only one indifferent was Lord Grimm. The 3 great guilds leaders were all presenting their conditions to let him join their groups. In the end, after seeing the system prompt, they slapped their foreheads and recovered. FCK, he's not the party leader. No choice, they had to turn to the other 5 seemingly non-existent players. Where'd the party leader go? The 3 great guild leaders began concerning themselves with those players that weren't even in their line of sight originally. At this moment, Lord Grimm suddenly spoke. Everyone be careful. What? Everyone was at a loss. After Lord Grimm used a circle swing and threw the blood gunner's body suddenly emitted a floating layer of blood-colored light. FCK, it's enraged. The 3 guild leaders were all veterans. They had knowledge and experience. Are you joking? What's the life at? The hundreds of players that gathered there were all in shock. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 66. Chapter 66. Undead Legion. When its life dropped to 10%, it would go into a red blood state. In this state, the boss would turn enraged. This was a fixed rule in Glory. Under the watch of all these Glory veterans, how could they ignore a party that had fought the blood gunner to 10% health? But the blood gunner wasn't at red blood, yet it now entered an enraged state. As veterans, they clearly understood what the blood gunner's enraged state meant. If they were the ones fighting, then they would have definitely prepared before it went enraged. But who would have thought that the blood gunner would suddenly turn enraged at this moment? Red blood isn't the only way for it to turn enraged. Bound Boat suddenly said. Blue River's complexion had already changed. Indeed, on some bosses, besides the red blood state, there were a few other ways that could lead to the boss turning enraged. Enraged, to put it simply, was the boss's way to save itself when it was in critical danger. For high-end wild bosses like the blood gunner, red blood wasn't the only time when they felt they were in danger. Other conditions could make them feel that they needed to turn enraged to resolve the crisis. 200 combo, Blue River blurted out. Noticing it now was already too late. By the time the blood gunner began shouting and glowing, it was already too late. Everyone felt the ground underneath loosen. Earth had already began opening up. The crooked tombstones and the remnant coffins looked as if they had awakened and began shaking. The blood gunner's enrage summoned his undead legion. The number of creatures summoned was proportional to the number of players in his aggro range. At this moment, it was quite a tragedy. The 3 great guild leaders were all in the blood gunner's aggro range. They had just been trying to invite Lord Grimm into their group. The 3 of them didn't represent a single person. They were the group's leader, so each of them represented the entirety of their respective guilds on the field. Normally, when they fought the blood gunner before it went into red blood, the leader would definitely be the first to leave the blood gunner's aggro range. In all of these years, relying on this setup, the 3 great guilds didn't know how many times they had fought against this monster. They were all too familiar with the blood gunner's summoning. Ha 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 ha. The blood gunner's call continued. A large mob of zombies and skeletons had already climbed up out from the earth, tombstones, and coffins. There were over 100. Stay in formation. Protect the healers and mages. The 3 great guilds' instructions were all practically the same. The newly summoned undead legion didn't have the same aggro as the blood gunner. Their aggro was reset and attacked as soon as they saw a player. They would attack whoever was close to them. In an instant, a great battle unfolded in the boneyard. The zombies and skeletons summoned by the blood gunner weren't more ferocious than the normal boneyard monsters, but the problem was that their levels were high. They were all the same level as the blood gunner, level 26, the highest level in the boneyard. They level suppressed every single player in the field, making them difficult to deal with. And adding on to their sudden appearance and random distribution, everyone was caught off guard. In the first moments, there were players that were surrounded and instantly killed. The 3 guild leaders' expressions were all ugly. They knew that this 200 combo was something Lord Grimm had deliberately done. This combo counter didn't count how many times the blood gunner attacked. It counted how many times it was attacked. But under the concentrated fire from being attacked on all sides, it was very easy for the combo to go over 200. As a result, this prevented players from bullying it too excessively. Normally, they would definitely pay attention to the combo. Breaking the combo was much easier than continuing the combo, but Lord Grimm commanded a party to hit out 200 combos. Moreover, he did it when the three great guilds were all inside the aggro range. He had clearly done it to make the boss turn enraged and restrict the three great guilds. His purpose was obviously still the Blood Gunner, but what about the Blood Gunner now? The Blood Gunner's aggro wouldn't change because it turned enraged. Its aggro was still on Lord Grimm. After turning enraged, it immediately shot violently and hit Lord Grimm into a cloud of white smoke. The players of the three guilds saw this, but weren't happy. The one that was hit was only Lord Grimm's shadow clone. Where was Lord Grimm's real body? After the shadow clone disappeared, another gunner's aerial fire shot out and he flew backwards, slipping out a good number of bullets. The Blood Gunner swiftly chased him. The three great guilds' players were being tangled by the Undead Legion and had no time to watch. They could only concentrate on stopping the undead's advance. The new brawler and the others were all stupefied. They had happily ran back, ready to join the group and reap the rewards. But who knew such an event would unexpectedly occur? The three could only helplessly watch as their other two members were instantly ripped apart into chunks of meat by the Undead Legion. The three immediately halted their footsteps. They finally understood what the danger Lord Grimm warned about was. Soon after, they saw Lord Grimm fly out. Behind him followed the astonishingly fast Blood Gunner. The three didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether Lord Grimm was fleeing or doing something else until they saw Lord Grimm's command. Go where? The three players asked. Come over and kill the boss, Ye Xiu said. At a loss, the three players turned around and ran. Over here, Ye Xiu gave the three players further directions. The three great guilds all saw this clearly. They had no manpower to spare and could only stamp their feet in rage. That guy's bringing away the Blood Gunner, everyone was shouting. Blue River almost died from anger and sent a message to Lord Grimm. Brother, you're not nice. At this moment, Lord Grimm was only running. He would occasionally stop to throw down the chasing Blood Gunner. He had time to respond to Blue River. What's wrong? Ye Xiu replied. What do you mean, what's wrong? Blue River saw this message and grew even angrier. Right when he was about to send another message, he suddenly discovered that he had nothing to say. Right, what's wrong? What did that guy do wrong? That guy planned to steal away the Blood Gunner, but saying that that wasn't nice. There was no such word in glory. Wild bosses had always been there to be stolen, but normally it had always been stolen by the three great guilds. If someone else apart from the three great guilds stole it, then why should that suddenly be not nice? Blue River was unable to speak. Apart from him, Endless Night also sent a message. You're very fierce. Ha ha, Ye Xiu replied. But don't be too pleased with yourself yet. With those few people, do you really think you'll be able to beat the Blood Gunner before we kill off all these trash? Do you really think we won't be able to find you? Endless Night replied. Then you guys better hurry up. Ye Xiu laughed and inhaled a breath of smoke. Where are we running to? The new brawler next to Lord Grimm asked. Ye Xiu hadn't yet replied when another player shouted. Uh-oh, there are people heading towards us. Don't panic. Give the party leader position to me, Ye Xiu said. The new brawler, without thinking, gave the party leader position to Lord Grimm. System message, Player 7 Fields has joined your party. Player Drifting Water has joined your party. Player Sunset Clouds has joined your party. Player Sleeping Moon has joined your party. Player Immersed Jade has joined your party. Kill! Ye Xiu shouted loudly. The new brawler and the others all watched, dumbstruck, as a group of people rushed forward. Some called him God, some Brother Expert, and others didn't say a word. They all headed towards the Blood Gunner to attack the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 67 Chapter 67 Speed up brother expert, you're too loyal. Seven Fields and the others rushed up excitedly. You guys are pretty brave too. Ye Xiu laughed. He had already told them what the situation was. This was like trying to pull a tooth from a tiger's mouth. He also wasn't sure if the three great guilds would just let this matter go. But in the end, these guys didn't care and hurried over. Even the little girl immersed Jade came, though it was possible that the noob girl didn't understand the situation and just came to join in on the action. What's there to be afraid of? Sleeping Moon yelled while chopping down quite energetically. He hadn't played yesterday, so his level was a bit lagging behind. But after bitterly training for a day, he reached level 21. These are all the people you've called. The noob brawler and the others stood there foolishly on the side. Yup, Ye Xiu said. When? The noob brawler asked. When I went up and joined your party, Ye Xiu said. You had already planned it all out at that time. The three were all appalled. What an incredible mind. Ye Xiu laughed but didn't say anything else. He began instructing each person on their position and skill timing. He even went as far as telling them when to drink their potions. Potions had a cooldown. What was the best way to drink potions to keep up your endurance during battle? That itself was a type of knowledge. Now, it looked as if 9 people were fighting the monster together. In reality, those 8 other players were all puppets. They completely acted according to Ye Xiu's instructions. They were a bit messy in the beginning. After all, Ye Xiu only had one mouth and couldn't give 8 people 8 commands at once. But after fighting for a bit, 7 Fields and the others, who weren't considered experts, were still veterans and already had a basic understanding of what to do. The noob brawler level players also did decently. Ye Xiu carefully observed each player's damage output. He calculated that they wouldn't be able to kill off the Blood Gunner before the 3 great guilds finished dealing with the Undead Legion. He quickly came to a conclusion. Foolishly fighting here wouldn't work. As a result, he began adjusting his tactic and distanced himself. The Blood Gunner was like a sheep. It was being cut down on one side and driven away on another. The more it moved, the more the blood flowed down. It was extremely miserable. At this very moment, Ye Xiu obviously wouldn't do another 200 combo and ask for more trouble, but there was no way to avoid its enrage when it reached 10% life. Of course, to Ye Xiu, that wasn't a problem at all. The Blood Gunner's life quickly plummeted. Ye Xiu estimated the time for both sides. The 3 great guilds should almost be done, but the Blood Gunner's life was still at 20%. Even though they pulled a bit of distance while fighting it, the time was still extremely tight. Ye Xiu turned his camera angle and looked towards the direction that they had come from. Boneyard didn't have much shelter. Looking into the distance, many players had already begun moving in their direction. Sure enough, the 3 great guilds had already finished their work, and on their side the damage output had already been stretched to the limit by Ye Xiu's leading unless higher-leveled equipment was given to them. But clearly that wasn't possible, or maybe, brother expert, they've all come over, 7 Fields suddenly said. Evidently, he had also noticed that they didn't have enough time. Okay, let's speed things up, Ye Xiu said. Having already reached this stage, there was no other choice but to fight. How? The 8 players asked. Increase your hand speed. Everyone concentrate, Ye Xiu said. At this moment, the only method was to increase their hand speed. Ye Xiu himself obviously wasn't a problem. In order to match everyone, he had deliberately controlled his hand speed to such a slow speed. But now, in this limited time to kill off the Blood Gunner, the entire party's tempo had to quicken. There were quite a few noobs in this party, which made things much more difficult. But at present, there was no other way. Hand speed wouldn't increase the character's attack speed. The character's attack speed was determined by class and equipment. It was a fixed number, but hand speed could increase their mechanical speed. The faster the mechanical speed, the faster skills could be put out. The character's sidesteps, rolls, attacks, skills, etc., each move would be linked together faster. At this moment, Ye Xiu wanted the entire party to increase their mechanical hand speed. This was effective hand speed. Let's say 2 points were on the screen. A and B, the requirement was for the cursor to move from A to B. Pro players, using the quickest hand speed the entire time, could move the cursor from A to B and accurately stop on B, but normal players, in order to accurately stop on point B, they could only lower their hand speed, decreasing their cursor's movement speed. If they forced themselves to increase their speed, then they might miss point B or even go over. In short, they couldn't get the most optimal result. But at this moment, Ye Xiu was too busy to worry about it. Fortunately, they didn't need to increase too much. There was no way everyone could suddenly reach a professional level hand speed. Ye Xiu assessed the situation. Increasing their current tempo by 20% should be enough. According to his observations, in their current tempo, there were a few people who still had energy to spare. For example, it shouldn't be a problem for Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon to increase their tempo by 20%. Sunset Clouds and Drifting Water were in the norms. After suddenly increasing the tempo, whether they could keep it up or not depended on their concentration. As for the 4 noobs, Ye Xiu had no hopes at all for Immersed Jade. This girl was already having trouble repeatedly making mistakes. The new brawler made Ye Xiu a little surprised. Although he was the stupidest of them all, his hand speed wasn't bad. When he instructed him, he carried them out precisely without any deviations. The other 2 were better than Immersed Jade, but not as good as the new brawler. "Fight! I'm speeding up," Ye Xiu yelled. His hands quickened. With this increase, the others all matched him and increased too. Just as he expected, Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon kept pace easily, and it wasn't too much of a problem for Sunset Clouds either. But Drifting Water reacted slower and was slow by half a beat. Immersed Jade was already in an oh-no state, but the new brawler made Ye Xiu pleasantly surprised. His attacks were as accurate as Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon's. Finally, those other 2 were in a complete mess. Their attacks became non-existent. "Don't panic, concentrate." Ye Xiu looked around. Besides Immersed Jade, who was completely hopeless, Drifting Water and the other 2 still had the possibility of keeping up. No good. Immersed Jade's hands were a mess. Her attacks were all hitting air. Immersed Jade, play on your own pace. Just use your skills whenever they're off cooldown and that'll be fine. Immersed Jade wasn't good enough. She had also picked the assassin class, which required a higher operating speed. Slow assassins, PK's most beloved. In Glory, this famous phrase said that assassins without hand speed were complete tragedies. They could be bullied around easily in PK. Immersed Jade was one such tragedy. Ye Xiu immediately gave up on her. The remaining 7 players made Ye Xiu feel extremely gratified. Drifting Water's speed also caught up, and the other 2 weren't as messy as they were when they first started. Although they made a few mistakes, Ye Xiu was still able to rescue them. They only increased their hand speed by 20%, but Ye Xiu burst forth with a 200% increase. If Chen Guo was behind Ye Xiu, she would definitely eat back her 3 words, disabled level hands. "Fast, fast, fast." Seven Fields yelled while repeatedly reciting this catchphrase. His yelling while increasing his hand speed helped motivate the others too. However, this time, his increases were extremely small, so everyone unconsciously kept pace too. Only Ye Xiu could detect this sort of small chance. But this really was an unexpected surprise, and he became even more certain of the outcome. "It's almost at red blood." Seven Fields suddenly shouted the King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 68, Chapter 68. Blood Gunner First Kill. Ye Xiu also moved extremely quickly and transferred the party leader position to Seven Fields. "Everyone retreat." Seven Fields and the other veterans had never killed the Blood Gunner before, but they heard the Blood Gunner story. They knew what happened once the boss became enraged, so they immediately retreated. Ye Xiu understood this better than Seven Fields. He didn't need any reminders. Under Seven Fields' lead, the 8 players left the Blood Gunner's aggro range. Ye Xiu's hand speed burst forth. Lord Grimm's battle lance executed several skills, blurring their eyes. The Blood Gunner's life instantly dropped to 10% red blood. Ha 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 ha. The Blood Gunner began summoning and emanating a layer of blood-red light, but the players had prepared for this. There was only one person in its aggro range, and he wasn't the party leader. The boss's actions were completely grasped, so it was inevitably bullied around ruthlessly by these players. Ye Xiu now had to control the Blood Gunner and make sure that it didn't run into the rest of the party while it was in this state. To Ye Xiu, this sort of task was as easy as eating food. After the Blood Gunner's summoning ended, a single skeleton appeared next to it, looking weak and lonely. Seven Fields and the others didn't move. They had also seen the Blood Gunner guide. Although they had all participated in killing this sort of wild boss with their guild, they had never experienced this sort of summoning. After the Blood Gunner finished summoning, could they enter battle and fight? They weren't sure. Kill! Until they heard Lord Grimm's commands. The 8 madly ran back to kill. The lone guard summoned by the Blood Gunner was instantly shattered into pieces. Who made it come here so lonely? The besieging continued. Doesn't the Blood Gunner summon again? Seven Fields asked. Yup. At 5% life it'll summon once more, and before its death it'll fire randomly, Ye Xiu said. What a shameless boss. Level 26 and it'll fire randomly, Seven Fields said. Just concentrate on dodging and you'll be fine. The final random firing has a high chance to crit. If a few hit, you'll definitely die, Ye Xiu said. How do we dodge the random firing? Sleeping Moon raised a question. For you, run a bit further away. Ye Xiu replied. FCK, clearly this situation was looking good. Highly skilled players could see that they could dispatch the Blood Gunner promptly. As a result, they all talked relaxedly. When the life hit 5%, the 8 players once again left the aggro range. The Blood Gunner summoned a lone zombie which was instantly smashed into mincemeat by them. The 3 great guild's players, with their fangs bared and claws brandished, creeped closer and closer. Ye Xiu received another message from Endless Night, who was still proudly saying, Ha ha ha, still fighting. You must have worked hard. It'd be better if you joined our guild's group right now. Ye Xiu ignored him. At such a critical time, he had to concentrate on killing off the boss. This fact was everything. The 3 great guild's players approached, but the Blood Gunner's life still wasn't low enough. Seven Fields and the others were a little worried. It looks like they're out of time. After all, they weren't as confident in their decision-making as Ye Xiu was. Cheng 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 cheng. It seemed as if they could already heard the sounds of the 3 great guild's gunners taking out their bullets and loading them. At her, Ye Xiu suddenly shouted. Seven Fields and the others ran from the scene without looking back. Seeing this scene, the 3 great guild's players subconsciously halted their footsteps. FCK again, some shouted. How could he be so timely? Some didn't believe it. Troops with me, Blue River said without fooling around. He transferred his group leader position to another party leader and brought the 10 most elite players forward. Tyrannical Ambition and Herb Garden also made the same decision. They all formed a 10-player party. This way, even if the Blood Gunner turned enraged again, it could only summon 30 monsters. They left some backup that could eliminate the Undead Legion while killing the Blood Gunner. The 3 teams all rushed forward madly. They were competing against each other to see who advanced the fastest. In this instant, they once again regarded the other players fighting the Blood Gunner as non-existent. This was a type of habit. Each group take out 3 players to kill off those guys. Blue River yelled. They could no longer let that party exist. Even if they didn't kill them, they had to at least force them away so the blood gunner could go into an off-combat state. Only then would the damage onto the boss be cleared. As for Lord Grimm, Blue River felt quite regretful. If they didn't cooperate, then this situation wasn't going to be easy to deal with. Blue River felt somewhat hesitant. Tyrannical Ambition's guild leader had already agreed and sent out 3 players from their party. Blue River looked at Herb Garden's side. The players were sent out, but he didn't see Plantago Seed. "Where's Plantago Seed?" Blue River asked. An Herb Garden player said, extremely embarrassed, "Dead." "Dead?" Blue River was surprised. He followed with a loud laugh and laughed until his stomach hurt. When the Undead Legion was instantly summoned, the situation had turned into chaos. Anyone dying wasn't anything strange, but Plantago Seed's skill wasn't low. His equipment was unlikely to be bad, and he at least should have been able to survive longer than most. But in the end, he still died. He could just imagine how helpless and lonely he was in that situation. Blue River's loud laugh made Herb Garden's players all extremely depressed, but what made them even more depressed came later. "What are you laughing at?" Tyrannical Ambition's Cold Knight asked. "Plantago Seed died." Blue River said, "Really? Congratulations." Cold Knight didn't bat an eyelid. Same to you," Blue River said. Herb Garden's players all coughed blood. At this moment, the players that were closing in on the blood gunner heard Ye Xiu yell, "Be careful, everyone." Having heard the news of Plantago Seed's death, Blue River's mood was quite good and he laughed delightedly. "Don't worry, brother, we can handle it." "Then that's good." Ye Xiu laughed. "Not good," Thousand Creations suddenly yelled. This guy who liked to kill steel had a natural feeling for a monster's life. At this moment, even though he hadn't yet completely closed in on it, he had an ominous premonition. "What's wrong?" Blue River asked. Yeah. The blood gunner once again began yelling and emanating a blood-red glow. In addition, this time it held a pose, horse stance. Its 2 hands crossed over its chest. His left hand supported the gun in his right hand. "FCK me, random firing." The experts all collapsed. Random firing was unleashed. The blood gunner never stopped shouting. The gun in its right hand changed into a blur of destruction. Countless bullets flew out in all directions at practically the same time. Although in theory the gun in its hands were a revolver, its chain firing was even faster than a machine gun. It also didn't need to load. This was a skill. The players of the 3 great guild that rushed up all covered their heads and fled like rats. 3 players died on the spot. They were too close. With such a high firing speed, they had no time to dodge. Squatting, lying down, twisting into an S shape, regardless of their form, everyone was just trying to survive. But the person who bore the brunt of the impact was Lord Grimm. However, when everyone looked, all they saw was a cloud of light smoke. It was the shadow clone technique again. But this time, the real body didn't appear in any spot within 360 degrees around the boss. He appeared overhead in the sky. Lord Grimm dropped down and used the fighter skill eagle stamp, stepping on the blood gunner's head. 1 foot, 2 foot. The battle lance soared out. A mid-air circle swing. Although the blood gunner was in a super armor state when he randomly fired, circle swing was a skill that ignored super armor. The battle lance swung the blood gunner around, drawing a 270-degree arc. Lord Grimm fell to the ground. His 2 hands smashed the ground with his battle lance, and the blood gunner was pressed under the lance. The random firing stopped. The 3 guilds' players felt as if they had taken back their life. Meanwhile, Lord Grimm had already used a sky strike, dragon tooth, and a falling flower palm. The blood gunner finally yelled out its final desperate cry. System announcement. 7 fields, Lord Grimm, steamed bun invasion, grazing fire, bright mushroom, sleeping moon, drifting water, immersed jade have completed the blood gunner's first kill. The faces of the 3 great guilds' players all turned deathly pale. Ye Xiu quickly sent a message to the party. "Give me the blood rifle." You guys can have the rest. The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 69 Chapter 69 Keep chasing and I won't be so nice anymore, wah. Ye Xiu still didn't know whether he had gotten his blood rifle yet, when he heard a sudden explosion of gasps erupt from around him. Even Chen Guo, who was concentrating on playing whack-a-mole, was startled by these gasps. Many guests in the happy internet cafe all stood up and all headed towards a certain direction. There were even quite a few who threw down their games and ran over. What happened? What happened? Chen Guo jumped out from the reception desk and headed towards that direction while asking. Lord Grimm completed another first kill, a guest said excitedly. Why are you so excited for him? Chen Guo was speechless and asked. What did he first kill? Blood Gunner, the other side said. Wild Boss. Chen Guo was astonished. This thing was even harder to first kill than dungeons. She had once seen the process of hunting a wild boss. Each big guild fought until smoke filled the air. While they attacked the boss, they also plotted against each other. The people watching couldn't tell if it was a boss hunt or a guild war. In this sort of major event, ordinary guilds had no qualifications to participate. Going up was a death sentence. Players without guilds even more so. Although the Blood Gunner was a low-leveled boss, this was a representation of the guild's grade and had nothing to do with low-leveled or high-leveled. Chen Guo followed after a crowd of people rushing toward Ye Xiu's computer. But when they arrived, everyone heard Ye Xiu yell out, "Run, run, run, hurry and run," hushing sounds. With the way he was yelling, it seemed like there was something wrong. It looked like there were quite some problems grabbing the first kill. In the end, a few 10th server players found a bit of information on the situation and gathered it together to gossip with everyone. I heard he stole it right from under the 3 great guilds' noses. DMN, so amazing. Everyone was amazed and suddenly felt that his shout, "Run, run, run," was nothing. It didn't affect how they perceived him as the embodiment of bravery and wisdom. Everyone stared at Ye Xiu's screen and saw his character running for his life. From time to time, Lord Grimm would turn his head and look back. As a result, everyone saw a large army of chasing soldiers. These were the 3 great guilds' players. Stealing the boss really isn't easy, everyone bitterly said. Do we have anyone here from the 10th server's 3 great guilds? Someone suddenly asked around in interest. No one said anything. They'd probably be furious. Some made fun of them. Lady Boss, go look and see if anyone's fainted in front of his computer. Call 911. Seeing Chen Guo, they joked around. Chen Guo didn't utter a word. Many others didn't utter a word either. These people all stared at the screen, not saying a word. They wanted to know whether Ye Xiu could escape from the danger or not. It wasn't so easy to get away from the 3 great guilds. He was only level 20, yet he had already offended all 3 great guilds in one move. Some people didn't think of him as brave or wise. They thought of him as a complete idiot. What would happen to the idiot? That's what they wanted to know. Chen Guo. She was perhaps the only one who was simply there for the excitement, seeing Ye Xiu madly hitting his keyboard to run away. She felt a little worried for him. You guys run first, I'll hold them off. Suddenly, everyone saw Ye Xiu swiftly type this out in the party channel. Wah, a true man, everyone praised him. Through Ye Xiu's screen, they could all see Ye Xiu's teammates. The 8 of them were all faster than him by a wide margin. They had no idea how this situation was brought about. Lord Grimm turned around and 4 players just happened to reach his back. His battle lance swept across. The 4 players clear didn't anticipate that Lord Grimm would suddenly stop to attack. None of them could avoid this. Lord Grimm immediately followed up with a short leap. He pulled out a sword in midair and slashed downwards. Falling light blades shock wave hit the 4 players. He moved so quickly, a few spectators cried out in alarm. Falling light blade could only be used in the air. Lord Grimm didn't jump high, so when this skill was used, it didn't look like the blade fell. Of the 4 players, 3 fell to the ground. The other player successfully used a quick recover and rolled forward. While he got up, he executed a sky strike. 1,000 creations. This guy deserved to be called an expert-level character. Although quick recover was considered a basic skill, it wasn't easy to fully grasp. In that instant, it's not that the three other players didn't think of using quick recover. It was just that Lord Grimm's falling light blade was too quick, or they missed the timing, so they evidently lost. Only 1,000 creations was left. Not only did he successfully quick recover, he also counter-attacked. But before the sky strike was completed, Lord Grimm kicked him to the ground. Interrupt attack. Interrupt was a type of priority attack. Chain hits, aerial attacks, back attacks, these were all priority attacks too. Interrupt, as the name implies, interrupted the opponent's attack. When 1,000 creations tried to use Sky Strike, Lord Grimm used Punisher to interrupt it, forming an interrupt attack. Ha 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 ha. When the gunfire shot out, the spectators behind Ye Xiu all laughed at 1,000 creations. But those with skill didn't laugh. To be able to quick recover from that sort of falling light blade. This 1,000 creations was very skilled. The sky strike after the forward roll was already the fastest counterattack possible, but he was still interrupted. This Lord Grimm's skill was even higher. If they were in his place, what would happen? Many players who thought of this weren't able to laugh. The 4 players who were defeated in the blink of an eye were all battle mages. This could be seen from their neutral chasers' increased movement speed that allowed them to be in front of everyone else. If not, then as new characters in the new server, they didn't yet have equipment with these added properties, so their movement speed would have all been the same. Although the 4 players were on the ground, Lord Grimm didn't have the chance to kill them. Everyone could clearly see that at this moment, Lord Grimm was completely out of mana. If you keep chasing, then I won't be so nice anymore. Lord Grimm suddenly crouched. It looked as if he were saying this into 1,000 creations' ear. Everyone heard Ye Xiu say this. The spectators sniggered. This was a bluff. He had no mana and was trying to scare them. Lord Grimm got up and continued running. The spectators were all anxious. They all wanted to know whether those 4 players were chasing him again, but Lord Grimm wouldn't turn his head. Everyone knew that Ye Xiu wore headphones and could hear the footsteps behind him. Seeing him so calm, they supposed that the pursuers really had been scared stiff. How could they not have been scared stiff? Lord Grimm was so strong. These pursuers understood this better than any of the internet cafe spectators. 3 players had been easily knocked down. The highly skilled 1,000 creations who tried to counterattack was also knocked to the ground. Continuing to chase him was the same as running to their deaths. They could only wait for the others to catch up. "Did you catch up?" Blue River messaged them. 1,000 creations gloomily replied, "We caught up, but we couldn't beat him." "Then, retreat back," Blue River messaged. 1,000 creations watched as Lord Grimm ran farther and farther away. He didn't move. The other 3 of the same class also reacted in roughly the same way. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com Chapter 70. Copy upgrade. In the end, the 3 great guilds stopped chasing him. After heaving a sigh of relief, Ye Xiu took off his headphones and turned around. He had already felt the liveliness from the crowd of people behind him long ago. "Brother, you're awesome," everyone praised. Ye Xiu laughed. "Lucky, lucky." "What did it drop?" someone asked curiously. "I got a blood rifle," Ye Xiu said. When Ye Xiu saw that this item dropped, he immediately clicked on it. 7 Fields and the others saw this and took note of it. They obviously wouldn't compete for it with Brother Expert. But the question was, what about those 3 noobs? In Glory, equipment didn't have any bindings. Even if you couldn't use an equipment, you could still take it and sell it. As a result, in random parties, dungeons were always a mess. If you had demands for equipment, random parties weren't a good choice. If you had demands, then it'd be better to look for a guild or friends. Forming a party this way would give you priority for your class's equipment. Random parties were for gaining experience and making money. As a result, after hearing Ye Xiu's demands, although 7 fields in them didn't roll for it, they didn't renounce it. They had to see what those 3 strangers were going to do, if any of those 3 rolled for it. Then they would also roll for it and help Brother Expert get the item. They had more people, so they had a higher chance of winning it. But in reality, they were too suspicious. Those 3 players swiftly renounced the blood rifle. After 7 fields and the others renounced it too, the blood rifle fell into Lord Grimm's inventory. They didn't have time to carefully examine the other items. Brother Expert kept urging them to run, run, run. Everyone just randomly rolled. They didn't even know who got what. They were still extremely happy with getting equipment that dropped from a wild boss that only respawned 3 times every week. Just then, it had dropped 4 pieces of blue equipment, all level 25. Actually, their luck wasn't that good. If it was, they would have had a chance to obtain a purple equipment from the wild boss. In comparison, the first kill made them feel more wonderful. Seeing how those players of the 3 great guilds were going insane from rage, how could they be in that state because they stole away 4 blue equipment? 7 fields and the others constantly admired their names on the leaderboards. They were so happy that they couldn't stop smiling. And Ye Xiu, he also had many people standing around him and watching. But at this moment he said a few words to free himself from the crowd. Everyone else wasn't very familiar with him. After casually chatting for a bit, they saw that there wasn't anything else really interesting, so they dispersed. Only Chen Guo still stood there. "Boss," Ye Xiu greeted her. Looking at the time, he immediately logged out of the computer. "I'll be going to the reception desk." It was almost 11, it time for him to take over for the night shift. Seeing Ye Xiu like this, Chen Guo felt too ashamed to say that she wasn't here to call him for the shift, but rather to see what all the noise was. 11 o'clock. The internet cafe emptied out all of a sudden. Quite a few people, who had just been spectating Ye Xiu, quickly left. Although the enthusiasm for Glory's new server was still there, many guests had studying or work to do, so there would never be too many idlers that played games all night. Due to the employees handing over their shifts and leaving, Chen Guo felt that the internet cafe became even emptier. Only Ye Xiu sat at the reception desk, sitting there all alone. Chen Guo went over to look, and this guy had already entered the game again. He truly was exceptionally disdainful. Besides sleeping and eating, this guy only knew how to play games all day long. While Chen Guo derided him, she headed to a different part of the internet cafe. She took a look, and Tang Ru was still in front of the computer, concentrated on playing the game. The screen suddenly flashed in front of her face, but Tang Ru didn't even blink. Chen Guo went up and saw Tang Ru was still focused on her task at hand. This girl was fairly unfortunate. She happened to play at the peak period of player activity. Completing quests was exhausting. Now that there were fewer players online, the situation improved a bit, making completing quests more fun. Chen Guo patted her. Tang Ru turned her head and faced Chen Guo, asking in a loud voice, "What are you doing?" Chen Guo pulled off her headphones. "It's 11 o'clock. "What? It's 11 already? I didn't know at all." Tang Ru was astonished. "What level?" Chen Guo asked. "Level 6. Because she was playing during the peak time, Tang Ru really did level slowly. "You're still not going to sleep," Chen Guo said. "You go first, I'll wait a bit." Tang Ru put on her headphones again and returned to the game world. "Then I'll be going first. Sleep early," Chen Guo said, but Tang Ru didn't respond. Clearly, after putting on her headphones, she could no longer hear Chen Guo's words. Chen Guo left while feeling at a loss. She had originally been the internet cafe's craziest fan for Glory. Once Ye Xiu came and Tang Ru was brought along, seeing how these two were playing with insane energy, was she no longer as enthusiastic for it. While Chen Guo though about this, she first returned to the second floor to rest. There really weren't any people just idling about. Everyone sat at their station and focused on playing. After Ye Xiu re-entered the game, 7 fields and the others immediately asked questions. Seeing that brother expert suddenly went offline, they all thought something bad happened to him. "It's nothing, I'm quite good, but you guys also need to be careful," Ye Xiu replied to everyone. "Don't worry about it." 7 fields and the others disdained as if it were beneath their contempt. Their strength of character was closely related to Ye Xiu. Before, they had regarded the 3 great guilds as gods and worshipped them. But after mixing in with Ye Xiu a few times, they found out that their initial scope was too narrow. Compared to Brother Expert, how could they be considered gods? Now, they had also successfully followed Brother Expert in stealing the boss from the 3 great guilds. These guys even felt dignified enough to put these 3 great guilds under their feet. The delight in their hearts far surpassed their worries. As for immersed jade steamed bun invasion, those other guys, these noobs had no idea what their gains and losses were. Though when they split the equipment just a moment ago, they felt extremely happy. "I'm going back to town," Ye Xiu informed everyone. "Oh, see you later, brother expert," everyone replied hurriedly. "Everyone be careful," Ye Xiu once again reminded them. Lord Grimm ran back to Bulls. The small town was a safe zone. He couldn't receive any attacks there, so he felt at ease putting Lord Grimm aside and opened the equipment editor. He put in the blood rifle that he just obtained into the editor. In these 2 days, he had easily gathered quite a few materials. The 1,000 Chance umbrella had several parts that could be upgraded. After opening the blueprint from the opened umbrella form, Ye Xiu began carefully dismantling the umbrella canopy. The umbrella canopy had a total of 8 parts. The umbrella ribs linked them together to form a whole canopy. He randomly chose a canopy part and put it into the copy template. On another side, he opened up the material library and clicked on 5 strong spider silk. The copying started. After the progress bar finished, the 5 strong spider silk transformed into the umbrella canopy's appearance. Soon after, he copied it another 7 times. 8 strong spider silk were weaved into umbrella canopy parts. The new canopy was put together. The gun and hidden sword parts were next. The umbrella pole was dismantled. It was divided into 2 parts, the pole and the hidden sword in the pole. Both parts were put into the copy template. In copying the pole, he added in the blood rifle and the skeleton warrior saber sheath. The hidden sword used the skeleton warrior saber. He clicked copy. After it finished, he carefully reassembled the 1,000 Chance umbrella. Ye Xiu worked extremely meticulously the entire time, but it didn't look too difficult. Apart from the dismantling and reassembling of the umbrella, all he did was click around and press copy. But if he didn't have the 1,000 Chance umbrella's original template, then how could there be a copy function? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 71, Chapter 71. Weapons and skills. Ye Xiu looked at the equipment editor's material library. Inside were a few uncommon materials that he had recently gathered. He couldn't use them yet. Ye Xiu closed the material library and confirmed the 1,000 Chance umbrella's modifications. After the modify bar completed, he withdrew from the editor. Returning to the game, he opened up the 1,000 Chance umbrella to see the changes. The 1,000 Chance umbrella's original form was still level 5. But after this modification, the 1,000 umbrella's sword form and gun form all rose to level 15. The weight didn't change and the attack speed stayed the same. But the physical attack and magic attack was very different from the level 15's lance form. 1,000 Chance umbrella sword form, physical attack, 240. Magic attack, 265,000 Chance umbrella gun form, physical attack, 238. Magic attack, 210. Lance, sword, gun. These different class weapons naturally had a difference in attributes. Even if they were of the same class, the weapon would still emphasize different attributes. For example, within the sword class, great swords had the highest physical attack, but usually had an attack speed of 1, the slowest. Short swords had the highest magic attack and usually had an attack speed of 5. Lightsabers had the highest attack speed, usually with a speed of 9. The other two kinds were the broadsword and the takai. The broadsword had high physical attack, not as high as a greatsword but had an attack speed of 3, slightly faster. Takais had high magic attack, not as high as a short sword but had an attack speed of 7, slightly faster. In this way, swordsman classes had to choose weapons based on their different habits and requirements. For example, spellblades and ghostblades were two classes that relied mainly on magic attack, so very few chose to use greatswords as weapons. Berserkers and blade masters mainly relied on physical attack, so if the short sword didn't have any special effects, then they wouldn't consider using it. Lightsabers were a special existence. Only blade masters could use this weapon. The game explained that only blade masters who pursued the limits of the sword could grasp these lightning-quick lightsabers. Because their attack speed was high, lightsaber attributes were similar to Takai's, but a bit lower in physical and magic attack. At this moment, the Thousand Chance Umbrella's attributes were similar to a Takai's, but its attack speed was 5, the same level as a short sword. Compared to same-leveled Takai's, its stats were lower by a grade. But looking at the Thousand Chance Umbrella's lance form, with 290 physical attack, this was the lance with the highest physical attack among mage-class weapons. It was equivalent to the greatsword among the sword-class weapons. The lance and the greatsword originally had the same attack speed of 1, but now the attack speed was 5. The Thousand Chance Umbrella's lance form was definitely a grade higher than same-leveled lances. Ye Xiu examined each form again. After discovering that the editor had changed the forms, he opened up Lord Grimm's skill list. At level 20, skill points would reset once. Although Lord Grimm was an unspecialized character, he also enjoyed this same benefit. However, at level 50, other classes would have another skill point reset during their class awakening. Unspecialized characters didn't. As a result, starting from now, skill points had to be used cautiously. But with Ye Xiu's 10 years of glory experience and being the person who was once called a textbook, Ye Xiu was already extremely familiar with all of the skills. Right now, he only had to verify Lord Grimm's plan on skill matching. With regards to unspecialized players, all of the skills they could learn was already in front of them. Glory had 6 basic classes, which each class having 4 specialized classes for a total of 24 classes. On average, each class had 5 or so skills under level 20, for a total of 120 skills. These were the skills that unspecialized characters could learn. There was an impressive amount of skills they could learn, but because they were all low-leveled skills, their formidability naturally couldn't compare to mid to high-leveled skills. And among these 120 low-leveled skills, he still had to choose cautiously, because skill points were truly limited. Although low-leveled skills didn't need a lot of skill points, all under 30 points, due to the inherent problem of low-leveled skills, if he wanted to match them up, then he needed to plan it out well. If not, even if he had the max 5,000 skill points, it wasn't possible to max out all 120 skills. Ye Xiu currently hadn't confirmed the final plan, but he would first learn the skills that he considered must-learns. As he leveled up, he was already prepared to go through a period of time to test things out in real combat. He checked the skill list once more to see if he missed anything. Suddenly, Ye Xiu smelled a whiff of tea and stared blankly. He lifted his head up and looked. It was Tang Ru holding a teacup standing outside the reception desk. Ye Xiu was distracted for a second. His habit of all-nighters stemmed from long ago. In the past, Suma Cheng always brought him green tea when he stayed all night. That girl insisted that people who pulled all-nighters needed to drink green tea. And today, he saw Tang Ru drink a sip from her teacup. Ye Xiu started sweating. He clearly felt a bit nostalgic. He even thought Tang Ru was Suma Cheng bringing him tea. "What are you doing?" Tang Ru asked. "Looking at skills," Ye Xiu said. "Oh, I can also learn skills," Tang Ru said. "Sky Strike and Dragon Tooth, right. These are two very useful skills, however leveling skills depends on your habits. First get familiar with these two skills," Ye Xiu said. "Okay." Tang Ru carried her teacup and left. The smell of tea lingered in the air, keeping Ye Xiu distracted. After silently lighting a cigarette, he continued to ponder over the skills. At this moment, Blue River looked at his friend's list and clicked on the online Lord Grimm. He felt an unprecedented confusion in his heart. The Blood Gunner battle was really too unexpected. Blue River's invitation to Lord Grimm was so that they could be around together more and establish a friendship. He didn't even think that Lord Grimm would show respect and help him. Kill stealing the boss was a guild-scale activity. How much of a difference could one man's strength make? In the end, Lord Grimm's performance made everyone present shocked. He led a few players, who they reckoned he didn't know, and killed off the Blood Gunner. He had beaten the three great guilds Black and Blue. Herb Garden's guild leader Plantago Seed even died in the line of duty. Blue River didn't know how the other two guild leaders felt about Lord Grimm. In any case, it made him admire this person even more. He already recognized that this person's skill was above his. At least, in that situation, Blue River definitely didn't have the ability to bring the Blood Gunner away, even if he was like Lord Grimm and fully used the conflict between the three great guilds. Particularly, while they fought against the Undead Legion, his party of players almost killed off the Blood Gunner. This sort of damage output was even higher than their guild's elite party. 80% of all this had to be credited to Lord Grimm's leading, but admiration was admiration. In reality, Blue River also didn't feel too good in his heart. He didn't suffer many losses, but he lost a lot of face. It had to be known that he was the one who brought this player over. This player, in the end, made him feel as if he made a wasted and futile effort. Blue River felt that what Lord Grimm wasn't proper and didn't give him any face. Blue River decided that he needed to speak properly with Lord Grimm. He opened Lord Grimm's chat window and sent a message. "Brother, what you did today wasn't very nice, no. The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 72 taking advantage of everyone." Lord Grimm replied quickly. "Yeah, a little. FCK. He actually confessed to it." Blue River was in total confusion. How am I supposed to reply? I should continue criticizing him, or it'd seem like I wasn't a man. I should just let it go, but it's hard to make that stifling feeling go away. Blue River felt a sort of feeling as if he had been instantly killed. Fortunately, they were chatting through messages. There was a way for him to express his speechless frame of mind. Blue River quickly returned a bunch of ellipses as well as a sweating emoticon. "Try harder next time," Ye Xiu replied. Blue River coughed blood. This guy didn't even take this matter to heart. What he said was true, though. Wild bosses were just like looting from wasp nests. If you were stolen from and refused to accept it, then just steal it back. Criticizing others' mistakes was something only noobs would do. Wait a second. He wasn't mad about him stealing away the Blood Gunner. He was mad because this person didn't give him any face. The problem was that he himself was the one to invite Lord Grimm to come. But instead, Lord Grimm was the one to kill the Blood Gunner. He himself didn't get anything out of it. Seeing everyone's discussion in the guild channel, this was the main reason for everyone's unhappiness with Lord Grimm. As for the boss being stolen, that was everyone for themselves. For example, if Herb Garden or Tyrannical Ambition had killed it, then although they'd be unhappy, it was a different type of unhappiness, not something to be at a loss about. Perhaps the reason he was at a loss now was precisely because Lord Grimm was different from those two guilds. If those two guilds had stolen it, Blue River could hold back his feelings and take revenge later. But what should he do with Lord Grimm? Blue River tore at his hair. As it turns out, this was the reason why he was so at a loss. How do you see this situation, Bound Boat? Blue River didn't message Lord Grimm again and privately messaged Bound Boat. It looks like it won't be possible to rope Lord Grimm in, Bound Boat said. Oh, from this blood gunner incident I think I can see his position, Bound Boat said. What do you mean? The three great guilds are all here and all want to rope him in, but he won't help any of them. He brought a random group of players not from the three great guilds and like this, smoothly killed the blood gunner, Bound Boat said. So you're saying that his skill is so great that he doesn't need to join a guild? Blue River said. I think a more accurate way to say this is, the guilds need him but he doesn't need a guild, Bound Boat said. Blue River stared blankly. Frankly speaking, he only wants to be hired and do every guild's work, Bound Boat said. With his skill, considering his skill from the way he's doing things, we can see that his appetite is large, his requirements are huge, Bound Boat said. Pro player, is he thinking of relying on this to make money? Blue River said. It's possible, Bound Boat said, but if he continues like this, there will be a time when he'll be at his limits. First kills, setting new dungeon records, there's a limit to all these things. If no one invites him, then what's he going to do? Blue River said. It's a new server, Bound Boat said. Blue River started sweating. He forgot about this. Speaking of this, if we look at previous servers, I've never even heard of a person like this, Blue River said. If there was a person like this, I'm afraid that he would have already been noticed, Bound Boat said. Then what is this guy's background? Bound Boat racked his brain. I don't know, we can't see how deep his strength goes, we can't see his reason. Up until now, he also hasn't changed classes yet, Bound Boat said. Then what type of attitude should we have for him? Blue River said. Stay in contact and continue watching him, Bound Boat said. May we should continue roping him in. Those were all just inferences we made, right? Blue River said. Okay, Bound Boat agreed and added, even if we can't rope him in, if we can establish a stronger relationship with him, then at least we'll have some sort of place in his mind. It seems like everything's reversed and we're the ones currying favor with him. Blue River sighed. Bound Boat remained silent. No matter how skilled an expert was, guilds would rope the expert in to use for themselves. But what about Lord Grimm? Why did it seem like everyone was revolving around him? Why did he seem to give off a feeling that he was the one waiting for them to give him candy? There was something wrong with this thinking. Blue River's thoughts had cleared. After breathing in deeply 2 times, he contacted Lord Grimm again. Brother, are you going to dungeon at 12? Blue River asked. At 12 o'clock, everyone's dungeon entry limit was reset and they could all begin bustling again. Maybe later, Ye Xiu said. Together. Blue River invited. No need, Ye Xiu started sweating. This person was very persistent. He still wanted to rope him in after having the boss stolen from him. Indeed, Ye Xiu stole the boss to indicate his attitude towards them. He didn't want to be tossed around by the 3 great guilds. That way, no one would needlessly express their goodwill to him. If they did, then even if he insisted on refusing them after some time, he would still feel that he owed them favors. Brother, don't be so polite, Blue River said. I've already asked others. Facing Blue River, who was acting just as he had been in the past, Ye Xiu had no choice but to make up an excuse. Who? Blue River immediately went on guard. Could another guild have beaten him to it? Friends, Ye Xiu said. Blue River wanted to ask what friends, but he felt that that was a little excessive, so he could only say helplessly, then next time when there's a chance. Next time, next time. Ye Xiu said half-heartedly. Blue River angrily received the message. Just when he received it, he suddenly thought of something. Brother, help us first kill the Goblin Merchant. Goblin Merchant was the Frost Forest's wild boss, but it hadn't appeared yet. This time I really did make a deal already, Ye Xiu said. As it turned out, what he had said before really was a lie. This guy really didn't hide anything when he spoke. Blue River asked him while coughing blood, "Who?" "Tyrannical ambition." FCK. Blue River slammed the keyboard. Confused, FCK, my confusion. Now someone beat him to it. Blue River regretted his own hesitation. Seeing the chat box, he didn't know how to reply. Sure enough, Lord Grim was the same as how Bound Boat and Blue River had analyzed him. He wanted to eat up all the guilds. But Tyrannical Ambition's players really were magnanimous. While he was confused, they had already let the matter go and made a deal with Lord Grim. Sigh. Blue River let out a sigh. In the end, he maintained his elegance and replied, "Then when that time comes, we're going to be enemies." "Yup, there's no need to show any mercy," Ye Xiu said. "Brother, for future wild bosses and all of the dungeon records, can I reserve them all?" Blue River said. "Let's talk about that when the time comes. At my level, I can't keep up with your pace," Ye Xiu said. "Brother, hurry up and level." Blue River saw that this really was a problem. He was level 24 right now. Tonight, he would definitely be level 25 after a few dungeon runs. But this Lord Grim was still level 21. The greater the level difference, the harder it was to make up for the gap. When they were all challenging level 30 dungeons, this person would still be puffing and blowing at the level 20 dungeons. At that time, if his records were broken, then even if Blue River wanted to turn back, he couldn't. His level would be too high. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 73, Chapter 73, Sand tossed truthfully. The three great guilds, reaction made Ye Xiu surprised. They appeared magnanimous and mature and deserved to be called towering great guilds. Tyrannical Ambition reacted the fastest. It wasn't very long after the Blood Gunner incident when that endless night sent a message. He didn't mention the incident at all and directly invited him to kill the goblin merchant. The pay was easy to handle, but the most important part was the guarantee that Tyrannical Ambition would grab the goblin merchant's first kill. Ye Xiu didn't object. He also had requirements from the goblin merchant. He had originally planned on buying the materials from the market, but now that an opportunity appeared, he obviously wouldn't let it go. Upgrading the 1000-chance umbrella truly required a wide variety of materials. He was already level 21, but he still hadn't upgraded the every form of the 1000-chance umbrella to level 15. Fortunately, this was a silver weapon, or else it would have become outdated already. Tyrannical Ambition responded quickly, while Blue Brook Guild was slightly slower. From Blue River's words, Ye Xiu could see his confusion. Ye Xiu completely understood him. Unfortunately, because of his state of mind at this time, Blue River lost a significant opportunity. As for Herb Garden, Ye Xiu didn't receive any messages. Herb Garden's players had never contacted him face-to-face. The boss respawned at random times, so for killing the goblin merchant, he couldn't say when. However, after all these years, everyone knew how to deal with it. In any case, they had to do what they had to do first. After finding the wild boss, they could go over. So when 12 o'clock arrived, everyone still formed parties to dungeon. Ye Xiu received Sevenfield's message asking whether he was going to Frost Forest. Brother Expert had actively called for them to kill the Blood Gunner, which moved these few players. They felt that they had gotten closer with Brother Expert. Seeing that it was 12 o'clock and they had dungeon entries again, they immediately contacted him. "Are you missing players?" Ye Xiu asked. "Yeah, we're missing one," Sevenfield said. "Oh, then I'll be there right away," Ye Xiu said. Dungeons were work that had to be done every day. They were the main source of experience and money. Even if he hadn't received Sevenfield's invite, Ye Xiu would have joined a random party. At least with these few brothers, he had priority over his requirements. Getting this benefit wasn't easy. After Lord Grim moved to Frost Forest, Ye Xiu unexpectedly saw that new brawler steamed Bun Invasion. "Why is it you?" Ye Xiu was baffled. Sweeping over everyone, he saw that Sleeping Moon wasn't there again. Did that little guy still hate him? Ye Xiu didn't know. Sleeping Moon hadn't added him as a friend yet. It's me. I'm following these big bros to learn. Steamed Bun Invasion was very modest. Although Ye Xiu knew that this guy was a noob, his hand speed was quite quick. Sleeping Moon played all day, so he went offline. Immersed Jade also couldn't pull an all-nighter again. Seven Fields explained. Oh, I can't do it tomorrow either, Sunset Clouds regretfully said. And you, brother expert. Seven Fields seized the opportunity to hear about Ye Xiu's work and rest. From these 3 days he could see that brother expert played all night every day. I'll still be playing during the night, Ye Xiu laughed. They formed a party and the 5 entered the dungeon. Although this Steamed Bun was a noob, he was the highest level among the 5 of them, level 23. Everyone chatted and asked about this. Then they knew that this guy played too crazily. When the server opened, he played for 24 hours without resting. On the second day, he carelessly slept a bit and then continued playing. From the start to now, it had been 48 hours. He spent 6 hours eating and sleeping, so he played for 42 hours. That was comparable to the great guilds rotating. Everyone sighed and then began killing monsters. As before, Ye Xiu led them and everything went smoothly. After sand toss, it's best to not immediately rush up and attack. These are only monsters, so it's a bit better. But if this was PK, as soon as they lose vision, experienced players would definitely use a horizontal sweep or a similar attack in front of them. Ye Xiu found time to instruct Steamed Bun Invasion. Then what should I do? Steamed Bun Invasion consulted. Stupid, go around the back to attack. They can't see anyways. Seven Fields and the others also spoke as instructors. Going around the back is one method. Ye Xiu didn't directly deny Seven Fields and the others' teaching. However, that method takes time, wasting some of the precious seconds of blind. Actually, the best method is not to use sand toss as an opener. It's best to use it in the middle of a combo. When fighting hand to hand, it's best to use sand toss to catch them off guard. At the same time, you guarantee that even if you miss the blind, you still have other options. So you're saying that it's best not to completely place your hopes on the blind, Steamed Bun Invasion said. Correct, opening up with a sand tosses blind and then attacking is an outdated method. Besides new players, no one uses it like that anymore. Besides new players, no one would fall for it either, Ye Xiu said. Then if you're opening with a sneak attack, then can you use sand toss? Steamed Bun Invasion asked. This, you can. After Ye Xiu replied, he started sweating. New strategies really did replace the old ones as time went on. Nowadays, even a noob's reasoning was so despicable. But I also can't completely place my hopes on blind for the follow-up attack, Steamed Bun Invasion summarized the main point. Yup, Ye Xiu said. I understand now. Steamed Bun Invasion felt that he learned this and was very satisfied. After that, he started practicing on monsters. While testing his attacks, he looked for an opportunity to use sand toss. Stupid NPC monsters wouldn't turn their head away like players would to avoid the blind method. Steamed Bun Invasion used sand toss pretty well. Brother Expert, when are you going to bring us to kill the Goblin Merchant? Seven Fields and the others asked. These guys were also very greedy. I already agreed to help Tyrannical Ambition, Ye Xiu said. Tyrannical Ambition. Seven Fields and the others became gloomy. Are you going to join them? Nope. Then. I'm just going to help them kill the Goblin Merchant, Ye Xiu said. Hired, Seven Fields and the others asked. They were familiar with this term too. Dungeoning parties often had hired players. These mostly appeared in medium to small guilds. This was because these medium to small guilds' strength wasn't enough, so they couldn't beat a few dungeons. In order to obtain equipment to raise their stats, they would sometimes hire experts to help them. But hiring never showed up in the 3 great guilds. How could the 3 great guilds not have experts? What type of dungeon couldn't they clear? What boss couldn't they beat? They were the game's peak team strength. If even they couldn't do it, then no outside hired hand could help. But now, Brother Expert was actually hired by these three great guilds. This wasn't selling himself to slavery. This felt like they were asking a celebrity to tour around with them. He was a star that demanded a fee to appear on stage. Seven Fields and the others were both envious and in admiration. Thinking of the beginning when they tried to rope Brother Expert into their full moon guild, they really were ashamed. Even the three great guilds paid him to appear on stage. For their full moon guild, 50th ranked in the heavenly domain, even giving Brother Expert the guild leader position wasn't sufficient. While they talked, a message flashed. Ye Xiu opened it. It was Endless Night. The goblin merchant has appeared. I'm in the middle of a dungeon. Ye Xiu regretted. Same. Everyone's in a dungeon. Let's contact after we come out. Endless Night said the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 74 Chapter 74 Understanding Information 12 o'clock. Not all of the level 20 and up players, but most of them were clearing dungeons. It was the new server's third day. Everyone continued their crazy training state of mind. As for players level 20 and below, having not left the beginner village yet, Frost Forest was completely unrelated to them. When the goblin merchant was discovered, who found it first or how many players had discovered it, no one knew. In short, now that tyrannical ambition received the info, they immediately notified all of the guild members. Those who weren't in a dungeon hurried over. Those who were in a dungeon increased their pace. Naturally, Ye Xiu was notified too. The goblin merchant has spawned. Let's speed up. I need to hurry over there. Ye Xiu led the party and increased their pace. Seven Fields and the others were envious, but they didn't waste time. With Ye Xiu's powerful leading, they advanced quickly and overthrew the Frost Tine in 28 minutes. After leaving the dungeon, Ye Xiu contacted Endless Night. They had also already left the dungeon. At this moment, they were heading over to the goblin merchant. After asking for its location, Lord Grimm immediately rushed over as fast as he could. Seven Fields and the others wanted to watch the exciting battle, and Ye Xiu didn't block them. The dungeon resided in the Frost Forest jungle. The vast, unimportant areas outside the dungeon were leveling areas. Along the way, Ye Xiu saw quite a few also running in the same direction as Lord Grimm. After all, Frost Forest was unlike from Boneyard because this place was more populated. For wild bosses, the three great guilds were never the only guilds there. Quite a few guilds also actively participated in this event. Moreover, there was no lack of opportunities. After all, the three great guilds constantly held each other back. Ye Xiu wasn't the only one who took advantage of this situation. I see you. While running, he suddenly received a message. Ye Xiu looked and saw that it was Endless Night. He glanced around left and right, and sure enough, he found that guy. Endless Night sent an invite over. After Lord Grimm left the dungeon, he had already left Seven Fields' party. Ye Xiu accepted the invite and joined the party. Evidently, this was Tyrannical Ambition's main party. The party leader was their guild leader, Cold Night. Welcome, Lord Grimm. Endless Night typed out in the party channel and sent a clapping emoticon. The string of players below copied him and also clapped. Ye Xiu didn't hesitate and returned a cup fist emoticon to show his respect. The two sides linked up and used voice to communicate. There are a lot of people, Ye Xiu said. Yeah, the three great guilds aren't the only ones here this time. There are a lot of players who came here to get in on the action. Besides Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild, what other guilds are relatively strong? Ye Xiu asked. Excellent Dynasty, Samsara, Misty Castle, Void Walk, Blossom Valley, Howling Heights, 301, okay. Ye Xiu found that Endless Night had tendency to never stop talking. It's just that there are too many powers with the strength to kill the goblin merchant, Endless Night said. With such a complicated situation, Lord Grimm, what do you think is the most important point? Guild leader Cold Night asked. Aggro. Ye Xiu hit the nail on the head. Whichever side can stabilize the goblin's aggro will be able to take the initiative. But you have to know, whoever pulls the goblin's aggro will also pull every other player's aggro too, Cold Knight said. So the person who pulls the aggro can't be the only one. Ye Xiu said. Can't be the only one. Right, form a full DPS party. The damage output has to be able to completely restrain the boss and guarantee that at any time and anywhere, if any person hears the command, they can immediately Ye Xiu said. Exactly how much do you like full DPS parties? Endless Knight ridiculed. Won't a lot of players die? Cold Knight said. If you completely use the jungle, then there might not be a lot of deaths. Ye Xiu said. How exactly are we supposed to do this? Cold Knight asked. Give me 5 level 20s and up with purple weapons to output damage. No problem, Ye Xiu said. No problem, everyone in this party has a purple weapon. Cold Knight said, I have an orange weapon. Endless Knight showed off. Cleric, behave yourself, Ye Xiu said. What classes do you want? Cold Knight asked. All long-ranged would be the best. Ye Xiu said, I'll call people. Cold Knight said. Clearly his party didn't have 5 long-range classes. They'll be here soon. Cold Knight informed. Weapon info. Wait a moment. Cold Knight went to gather their weapon info. He then sent them one by one. Gunners were completely long-ranged classes. Besides them, mages and spellblades possessed a certain amount of long-ranged strength. Of the 5 players that Cold Knight gathered, 3 were gunners, a sharpshooter, a launcher, and a spitfire. The other 2 were an elementalist and a spellblade. Their weapons were all purple and ones that their class were proficient in. After glancing over them, Ye Xiu asked, their skill levels. Cold Knight ran over again and asked them. In a moment he gathered the 5 players' skill choices and levels to him. Do you still have a? Brother, please tell me everything at once, please. Cold Knight's cheeks streamed with tears. He was the guild leader, running back and forth like a secretary. What was this? I mainly want to understand these 5's ability to output damage, Ye Xiu said. If you told me earlier, then wouldn't letting you see their player profiles be good enough? Cold Knight cried. Their ability to output damage isn't the same as their damage numbers. What special effects do the weapons have? Did the equipment add any additional skills? How much damage do their skills do? Does the player profile have these? Ye Xiu said. Brother, I was wrong. Cold Knight's cheeks streamed with tears and went to ask again. After understanding the equipment, Ye Xiu said, Okay, I've understood these. Is there still anything on the player profile that I can see? No need, right? Cold Knight wasn't sure if this was a rhetorical question or a question he should answer, so he had not choice but to answer it. You 5 players hurry up and get into position, Ye Xiu said. You're leading this party to do damage. What about us? Cold Knight asked. Our party is for pulling the aggro. You guys are the damage, Ye Xiu said. Cold Knight teared up. It looked like he was a noob. What to do, what to do? Look, it's the goblin merchant. Ye Xiu took in the information along the way. Everyone in front of him never stopped until they finally reached their destination. And when they looked, they saw a scene filled with noise and excitement. Players were everywhere, shouting to capture the goblin merchant. This goblin merchant was also green-skinned from head to toe, but his appearance didn't look as crafty as the goblins in the dungeons. It looked very simple and honest. It carried a massive backpack on its back and vigorously ran in the forest. From time to time, it would fish out something from its backpack and threw it. Firecracker, grenade, Molotov cocktail, brick, wine bottle. Anything was possible. It hadn't been that long since the first players discovered the goblin merchant. At least, they still hadn't surrounded it yet. The goblin merchant that was leading around the parties muttered words in a language that no one understood. After throwing a Molotov cocktail, the scene transformed into a sea of fire, and the goblin merchant lightly and quickly leaped off a tree stump. A sword light flashed and streaked across the dusky forest. The sword wind swept up the dried-up leaves on the ground, which fluttered up in a straight line. The goblin was accurately slashed in midair and fell to the ground. Blade master skill, sword draw. A player came out from behind the tree. Blue River the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 75 Chapter 75 Losing the fight for the monster indeed, Blue River was a rare expert. This sword draw was accurate and precise. The sword arrived before the person and landed a beautiful aerial attack on the goblin merchant. If this was 7 fields, it'd be difficult for him to do this move. Blue River followed up with a triple slash. This was an attack and movement blade master skill. Just before the goblin merchant hit the ground, his character swiftly slid forward and shua, 3 sword lights and 3 marks of blood flew through the air. Upward slash. Blue River slashed again with his sword, ready to knock the goblin merchant into the air, when suddenly an eccentric battle lance flew by. Blue River saw this weird battle lance and his heart tightened. He shot a glance and sure enough, it was Lord Grim. 1 sword and 1 lance headed towards the goblin merchant together. The sword was fast, the lance was long, which would arrive first. Was it me? Blue River felt that the uppercut he made with his sword arrived at the same time as Lord Grim's stab, but by the time the goblin ate his attack, it had already risen higher up into the air. The battle lance stabbed forth. The goblin merchant was immediately drawn across a semicircle and was thrown onto the ground next to Lord Grim. Circle swing. Both of their skills hit the goblin merchant. Regretfully, Lord Grim used a seizing skill. By the time the goblin merchant was shaken off, he was already in front of Blue River, blocking his path. Lord Grim's face was in front of him, but his character's face was always so empty. Blue River didn't know what Lord Grim's mood was, but he knew that he himself was very calm. Without hesitating, he swept across with his blade, slicing towards Lord Grim. Lord Grim leaped backwards, dodging the attack. Mid-leap, he was positioned behind the goblin merchant. Suddenly, a sky strike hit the goblin merchant. Immediately following, a falling flower palm exploded onto the goblin merchant's body. The goblin merchant went flying, smashing towards Blue River. Too quick. At this moment, personally fighting against Lord Grim, Blue River finally experienced how fast this guy's operation was. Just before, when he used a sky strike, did he even finish jumping backwards. He actually hit the goblin merchant so precisely in midair. The following falling flower palm was even more ridiculous. Was the goblin merchant really already in the air when he used it? If it really was still collapsed onto the ground, falling flower palm didn't have an on-the-ground effect. On the ground was a type of attack in glory. It was a pursuit attack targeting the opponent on the ground. Falling flower palm was a straight-line skill and wouldn't be able to hit a target on the ground. He first used a sky strike in order to let the goblin merchant into a midair state. Only then would the falling flower palm hit it. In Blue River's eyes, he only felt that Lord Grim's backwards leap, sky strike, into falling flower palm was inconceivably quick. He couldn't even tell if he had hit the sky strike or the flower palm, when the goblin merchant had already flew towards him. All in all, Blue River's strength wasn't ordinary either. He immediately guarded when the goblin merchant smashed into him. The goblin knocked against his sword blade and Blue River slid backwards a step, but in the end, Blue River wasn't knocked down by the strike. His main goal wasn't to fight Lord Grim, but rather to steal the goblin merchant. Blue River's train of thought was exceptionally clear. It was just that he didn't have a skill like circle swing that could throw the goblin to the side and increase the distance between the goblin and Lord Grim. Blue River could only increase his damage output to establish the goblin merchant's aggro onto himself and let it come to him. Rise and fall, falling light blade. Unfortunately, the current battle master was a class without any on-the-ground skills. In the end, right when he leaped up and slammed towards the ground, before he could pull out his sword, a sword light swept out towards him. The speed was too quick for Blue River and the attack was filled with tyranny. Blue River saw blood blossom out from his head as he was hit in midair and flew backwards. He only had one thought in his head: impossible. He clearly saw that when Lord Grim used sword draw, he didn't switch weapons in his inventory. He directly pulled out a sword from the handle of that eccentric battle lance. After the sword light flashed, it disappeared. Blue River looked again and saw that Lord Grim didn't have a sword in his hand. Did his eyes imagine it? Blue River believed that he didn't. But he couldn't understand what had just happened in that instant. Blue River didn't tumble. When he landed on the ground, he immediately rolled forward and used quick recover to avoid falling to the ground. At this moment, the distance between himself and the goblin merchant increased once again. Blue River impatiently ran forward. Boom! Another boom rang out and Blue River was thrown into the air. FCK. Blue River cursed secretly. This was his own mistake this time. He only focused on getting close to the goblin merchant and forgot that the boss would release a shockwave when it got up. Otherwise, the boss would stay on the ground, unable to get up. The shockwave hit Blue River into the air, but he once again used quick recover to avoid falling to the ground. He looked and saw that Lord Grim skillfully jumped to avoid the shockwave and had already rushed up to the goblin merchant. He directly used fling and threw the goblin farther away. Over there, numerous tyrannical ambition players swarmed around it. In the short fight over the boss, Blue River lost, but he knew that this was far from over. Everyone on the field, including their Blue Brook Guild, definitely wouldn't let tyrannical ambition casually kill off the goblin merchant. Have you arrived yet? Ye Xiu controlled Lord Grim to rush towards the tyrannical ambition group. After slashing a few times to stabilize the aggro onto the goblin merchant, he asked this question. Almost here. Cold Knight was even more anxious than Ye Xiu. This goblin merchant had already been pulled. A large crowd of players had already rushed towards that area. However, the goblin merchant was currently in tyrannical ambition's hands. Many hesitated for a bit. They didn't just give up on the boss and hope that someone stood out and rushed forward. After all, in their hearts, none of them wanted to directly clash with tyrannical ambition. Of course, not all of the players were afraid of tyrannical ambition. Blue Brook Guild's players weren't scared at all. The Blood Gunner incident was still vividly in their minds. The reason that matters turned bad was because the three guilds hesitated. They were all afraid of going forward and being attacked from behind. This time, Blue River was exceptionally decisive. Without even thinking, he took the lead and rushed up. More than a dozen Blue Brook Guild experts followed closely behind him and equally matched the current group of tyrannical ambition players. Scatter, Ye Xiu commanded. Cold Knight and the others followed his orders and scattered in every direction. The goblin merchant was once again struck flying by falling flower palm. That Spitfire and Elementalist were in the left and right position. Most of their figures were hidden behind a tree. When their skills were off cooldown, they suddenly stuck their heads out and attacked the goblin merchant. Cold Knight led a group of close combat experts but didn't go up to surround it. They only paid attention to its move path. From time to time, when this goblin merchant passed by a tree, a player would suddenly pop out and punch or slash at the boss. Blue River was dumbstruck. He had never seen anyone fight the boss like this before. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 76, Chapter 76. Controlling the boss's move path in the forest, Blue River practically only saw the goblin merchant, with his butt out, carrying a massive backpack and chasing Lord Grim's figure. The rest of tyrannical ambition's players had unexpectedly all scattered into the woods, becoming sniper guerrillas. This goblin merchant, when facing normal players, wouldn't it bounce around and freely and easily throw items out of his backpack? Why was it having such a hard time chasing Lord Grim? When it threw a grenade, Lord Grim had actually hit it back in midair, making it explode onto its head. It really was stupid. What timed grenade? You were using a trigger type. Although it was like this, to hit the grenade in midair back to the goblin merchant's head, Lord Grim wasn't only quick, his microing was extremely precise too. Blue River madly chased after it while sighing with sorrow. After all, Lord Grim was both attacking and leading the goblin merchant away. He couldn't be moving at his fastest speed. Blue River and the others quickly caught up. Behind his Blue Brook Guild, a crowd of other players also steadily kept pace behind them as if they were wolves. How could Blue River not know that those guys behind his butt were despicable? But the blood gunner incident taught them a bloody lesson. If he hesitated and didn't move forward, then tyrannical ambition would take the advantage. "Thousand Creations, go around to the front and block him," Blue River said. "Why me?" Thousand Creations was depressed. "You're a battle mage, if you don't go who will?" With the chaser's additional effects, battle mages were faster than others by a grade. There's still little C. Thousand Creations was talking about another battle mage, little C. "Your skill is better." Blue River wasn't afraid to hurt little C. Everyone recognized Thousand Creations' skill. "In that guy's eyes, my little skill is nothing," Thousand Creations said. "How many times have you fought with him?" Blue River said. "I don't believe you can't see his terrifying skill," Thousand Creations said. "Okay, there's nothing to block anyways, we've already caught up," Thundering Light ridiculed. While these two guys argued, the goblin merchant had already entered their range. Thundering Light stepped forward and used Raging Flames. It wasn't easy for the mage to hit the target. He first had to be familiar with the magic's release time and determine the target's movement direction and speed to predict its future position. Thundering Light was an expert and wasn't lacking in this area. Raging Flames covered a wide area, so it was a bit easier to hit. He accurately chose the area 3 bodies in front of the goblin merchant and casted his magic, releasing it there. Spitfire. At this moment, Ye Xiu sent a message to the party. The party channel was completely clean. They were afraid of affecting Ye Xiu's leading. When the Spitfire saw the message, without saying another word, he fired a light element bullet. The light element bullet flickered and sent out a pa-pa sound, instantly hitting the goblin merchant's body. Light scattered around the goblin merchant's body. It trembled from head to toe. After the short distraction, it suddenly changed directions towards the left side of the forest and ran. FC Kerr. Thundering Light was dumbstruck. His magic had already finished casting, and he thought that he would see the goblin merchant fly up into the air. This would have been the perfect opportunity to let them fight over it for at least 2 seconds. Who knew that the goblin merchant would suddenly change directions and aggro onto a different target? Having changed direction, that Raging Flames rose up but only hit air. "Do you have any skill? Can you play? You let it out at a key moment, you idiot." Thundering Light stomped furiously and shouted angrily at the tree in that direction. "So noisy." A brawler from Blue Brook Guild said this and threw a brick at the goblin merchant. Although a thrown brick would have its effect reduced by half, it was thrown at the back of the goblin's head, so its chance to dizzy increased by half too. As a result, the chance to dizzy was quite high and would stall it for a bit of time. Who knew that a gun sound would ring out while this flying brick was in midair? With a bang, the brick was broken into pieces and a pile of brick dust fell down. The brawler was also dumbstruck. "FC Kerr," the brawler shouted. "Am I cursed? Am I dreaming?" Tyrannical ambition has this sort of expert. No one answered him. The players with good eyes had seen that the weird thing in Lord Grim's hand had puffed out gun smoke. "Pay attention to Lord Grim's weapon," Blue River said to everyone. "It's weird." "Model." "No." Blue River couldn't think of the word at this moment. "Capture the goblin merchant before talking," someone said. Although both had failed to stall the goblin merchant, the distance between Blue Brook Guild and the goblin merchant still closed. Who would have thought that when the goblin merchant ran to that tree, the one to appear wasn't a Spitfire but a grappler? The grappler grabbed the goblin merchant and threw it towards Lord Grim. Grapplers were specialists in grabbing, and each grab had different effects. This fling threw it faster and farther than Lord Grim's usual fling. Blue Brook Guild once again went on a pointless trip, and everyone was seething with anger. At that side, Lord Grim had already welcomed it, and after 2 or 3 attacks, he re-established the goblin merchant's aggro onto himself. He did another circle swing and fling. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the goblin merchant and Blue Brook Guild widened once again. Wait a moment. Bound Boat figured something out. That ought just before might not have been an accident. It was something they arranged. It was intentional. Bound Boat said. What are you saying? Everyone was frightened. They want to use this sort of method to actively control the goblin's move path. Is that sort of method even possible? Everyone was at a loss. The facts are in front of you, Bound Boat said. It's Lord Grim, it's all because of his leading. Blue River said. What do we do? Someone asked. Disperse into groups of 2 and attack every one of them, Blue River said. That make us easy pickings. Bound Boat was a little worried about the players behind them. Those trash won't change the situation. Blue River said. How come we haven't seen anyone from Herb Garden? Bound Boat said. That trash Plantago seed is hiding again. We have to be cautious of this. Why aren't our players here yet? Blue River was worried. Their Blue Brook Guild wasn't just these dozen or so people. Herb Garden's players are here. Bound Boat suddenly put out these words. Blue River looked forward as expected. A crowd of players lay in the forest in front of them. Although the names on top of their heads weren't clear, Blue River had had many dealings with them and instantly determined that they were Herb Garden names. They're going around to flank them, Bound Boat said. That trash Plantago seed, he definitely received info from a trader. Blue River disdained. When they go block Lord Grim's path, take advantage of the situation to steal the boss back. Bound Boat said. Forward. Blue River roared the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 77 Chapter 77. Directly flying over Blue Brook Guild's players were chasing from behind. And ahead, Herb Garden's players suddenly popped out. Tyrannical ambition sunk into a dilemma where they were pressed from the front and rear. Elementalist, Ye Xiu yelled. The Elementalist immediately cast a flame explosion and the boss once again odied. The goblin merchant headed towards the Elementalist located in the right side of the forest. It really is on purpose. Blue River and the others were certain now. Are they going to run to the east? Bound Boat decided. Go east. Blue River led his party to the east and was ready to rush over when the time was right. If you meet tyrannical ambitions players, don't be polite, Blue River commanded. We definitely won't, everyone declared. While they ran to the east, everyone paid attention to behind the trees. They all hoped to pick off a tyrannical ambition player to warm up. In the end, the only things they were able to pick off were small goblins. They didn't find a single tyrannical ambition player. The tyrannical ambitions they occasionally saw were all even farther away than the goblin merchant. The Herb Garden players in front of them didn't want to fall behind either, so when the Blue Brook Guild changed direction, they also raced against Blue Brook Guild and rushed to the east. When the 2 guilds changed directions, Bound Boat was immediately startled. They're not trying to misdirect us, right? Blue River also felt something wasn't right. Bring a few players and go around to the west. Bound Boat immediately chose a few players. The Blue Brook Guild force split into 2. One went to the east to intercept, while the other went to the west to prepare for an interception. Herb Garden immediately responded in the same way and sent a part of their forces to the west. Those who didn't understand the situation would have thought that these 2 groups were together. In reality, they weren't together at all. Both groups would be delighted if the other group made a mistake. The goblin merchant that was running at the Elementalist was suddenly hit by a rappel from behind a tree. It slipped backwards a length and then a gun sound rang out. The goblin merchant once again turned around in hesitation. As expected, it really was a misdirection. The Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden players that saw this scene all began pondering over it in their hearts. Moreover, the goblin was rushing over to where Lord Grim was. DMN. Who would have thought that the one to ought and take the aggro was Lord Grim? And this guy ran to the north. Although Herb Garden had split its forces to the east and west, there was still time to merge again and block the enemy's path. If they kept on running, then wouldn't they be running into a metal wall? What type of trick is he planning to pull? Players who love to analyze were all pondering over Lord Grim's thinking. He'll definitely change routes, right? Some players thought. Herb Garden pondered over this even more seriously. After all, they were there to block his path. East or west or the original direction, where were they supposed to wait? In the end, Plantago Seed helplessly split his forces into three. He had no choice but to defend every side. No choice. If the other side wanted to ought, then they would ought. Whatever route they wanted the goblin merchant to follow, the goblin merchant would follow. They could only defend on all three sides. Which side would he go to? Everyone carried this type of question, fixed their attention on the goblin's move path. In the end, they didn't see any change. They saw Lord Grim lead the goblin merchant directly towards Herb Garden's interception. Herb Garden also had a dozen or so players here. They immediately formed an arc to surround him. Long-ranged gunner-class players had already cocked their guns and fired. Mages began casting their magic. Lord Grim suddenly leaped. The gunners immediately adjusted their aim. But in the end, they saw Lord Grim spin 180 degrees in the air, his butt pointed at them. The butt is the butt. The gunners didn't really care and their cursors quickly aimed at his butt. A gun's sound. Admiration arose in the gunners' hearts. Who aimed so quickly? What an amazing speed. Then they saw Lord Grim slide across the horizon. DMN, it's his aerial fire. All of the gunners cried out in fear. In aerial fire, the higher the recoil, the faster the flying speed. Lord Grim's gun had to be at least a rifle grade. All of the gunners raised their guns and open-fired. But in the end, they only hit air. The target moved too quickly and they weren't able to hit him. Lord Grim's butt reached the top of their heads in a flash. Then they saw Lord Grim turn his body. A cold light flashed and Lord Grim pulled out a sword in midair. Falling light blade, quickly retreat. The blade masters all warned. Their judgment wasn't wrong. A bright light slashed down from midair. It was precisely the battle master's skill falling light blade. These dozen Herb Garden players weren't ordinary players. Every one of them jumped backwards. The bright light fell to the ground and a small light wave rippled out. But the dozen players had already jumped outside of the wave's range. Forward, someone roared. After the light wave scattered in an instant, the dozen players rushed forward. Lord Grim's 1,000-chance umbrella shook and the umbrella flipped, not maintaining the battle lance form. A third of the umbrella ribs suddenly broke off. The remaining 2/3 of the umbrella ribs bent into a sickle-like shape. And at the same time, the umbrella handle moved outwards as if he were pulling out a sword, but stopped 2/3 of the way out. In the end, the umbrella handle extended a length. This transformation only took an instant. The players surrounding him only saw a blur and Lord Grim's weapon had already changed into a different shape. They couldn't really describe the weapon, but it looked like his arms swung and the 1,000-chance umbrella drew out a 360-degree circle around him. When the starting point and ending point linked together, the circle suddenly flashed a blue light. FCK, Rising Emblem, a player finally called out. This time, the players surrounding him retreated a little too late. The floating blue circle suddenly flashed and grew larger, and a pale blue ring suddenly rose. The dozen players were all inside the ring. They weren't able to dodge in time and were thrown up into the air. The priest-class exorcist skill, Rising Emblem, the skill did magic damage and knocked up all players inside the Rising Emblem. By the time the dozen players fell back to the ground, Lord Grim had already broken through their blockade. A few players tried hard to attack Lord Grim in midair. But while knocked up, the target was constantly moving and difficult to target accurately. It wasn't an easy task. Not everyone could do this well. In the end, everyone's attacks were futile efforts and weren't threatening at all. However, almost all of the players were able to quick recover after falling down, showing the quality of Herb Garden's players. But when they were still rolling and getting up, they all saw a grenade within their circle. A boom, and the dozen players swayed side to side from the explosion. Within the surging smoke, the goblin merchant carried its backpack and freely and easily passed through them. Everyone's cheeks streamed with tears. The goblin merchant's aggro wasn't on their characters. That explosion obviously wasn't meant for them. Clearly, Lord Grim had intentionally drawn the goblin merchant to throw it at them. Why did the goblin merchant help Lord Grim? Why couldn't you have thrown a brick at them? Did you have to throw an AI grenade? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 78, Chapter 78. Forced into helplessness, the 10 swaying players didn't have time to recover when they saw a dozen tyrannical ambition players evilly come out from behind the trees and rush over. The tyrannical ambition players took the opportunity to conveniently throw a few grenades and cast out some magic towards them without wasting time, and then continued to chase the goblin merchant. After all, that was their true target. The dozen players swayed once again and turned depressed. Just when they recovered, Blue Brook Guild's players whistled by. Trash, truly trash. Blue River relentlessly ridiculed these opponents. Afterwards, he led his group of people, and Shua also took the opportunity to conveniently slash a few times and cast some magic. These pitiful dozen players were tossed around from all around. Their luck wasn't good. They were bullied around. They were taken advantage of. They directly fell and died. Plantago Seed was extremely furious. The boss hadn't been stopped, and his guild members were even taken advantage of. He directly sent Blue River a message. You're all beasts. You guys really are a bunch of trash. You couldn't even stop the boss. Blue River replied. You F-Seekers were here all day and you guys couldn't do anything. Plantago Seed replied. We're both in the same boat. Blue River replied. Afterwards, both sides were completely silent. Their hearts felt very heavy. Ahead, the injuries the goblin merchant suffered grew more and more severe. Clearly, tyrannical ambition's reinforcements were gradually trickling in. Every time Blue River and the others closed in, tyrannical ambition nimbly oded, keeping them away. The goblin merchant's advance wasn't regular at all, making everyone feel extremely frustrated. Blue River had originally hoped that Herb Garden's interception would help them catch up. But who knew that Herb Garden's players were complete trash? Helpless, he could only use his original plan. 2 players in a team. Look for tyrannical ambition players and get rid of them. They basically couldn't catch the goblin merchant. They would occasionally hit it once or twice, but this sort of hit was the same as helping tyrannical ambition output damage. They weren't able to steal its aggro and were unable to take the initiative from beginning to end. If they kept wasting their time like this, then tyrannical ambition's damage output would be enough. The boss could kill whoever it liked, but as long as someone from tyrannical ambition stayed alive, then it wasn't possible to steal it away. Only if they were able to completely drive them out or kill them all out would they be able to steal it. As a result, stealing the boss was quite difficult. If they arrived too late, there was no way to take back the damage on the boss, so the only solution would be to kill everyone that had attacked the boss. This turned into a big PK problem because the skill gap between players was very small. Killing players would always be more difficult than killing monsters. Moreover, there was no end to the trouble. Blue Brook Guild didn't worry about any later troubles. Directly fighting with tyrannical ambition and peeking with them to steal the boss were occurrences that they were already used to. To them, The more crucial point was that tyrannical ambition's strength and their strength were about the same. As a result, if they fought them, then it would be a 50-50 fight. But regardless of this, it was still better than silently watching. Blue Brook Guild had around 20 players at hand. At this moment, they split into around 10 small two-member teams and spread throughout the forest. As soon as they saw a tyrannical ambition player, they would immediately hurry over. In an instant, the goblin merchant was no longer the sole focus. All of the tyrannical ambition players were. The two-member teams that found them all cautiously closed in on their targets. But chasing players wasn't an easy task. Everyone's levels and equipment were around the same. Their movement speed and endurance were also around the same. Chasing and chasing, Thundering Light suddenly said in the guild channel, "Huh, where did that goblin merchant go? I can't see it anymore." His message roused everyone. Everyone had only been focused on the target in front of them, but what about their end target? Was it still there? Once everyone took note of it, even those who could still see the goblin merchant suddenly found that it was farther away. "We've been duped," Bound Boat recovered. "This time's boss, let's give up," Blue River gloomily announced. The guild members didn't utter a word. This sort of situation was rarely seen in their famous Blue Brook Guild. Fighting and then giving up midway. This sort of attitude usually only happened when a new dungeon and new boss was released. But now, it was just a goblin merchant. It was a small boss everyone knew thoroughly. Their opponents were also the extremely familiar tyrannical ambition. Their opponents only had a Lord Grim, yet they had unexpectedly given them such a difficult time and made them give up. "Hey, why aren't you guys chasing anymore?" Plantago Seed sent a message. "It's all yours," Blue River said. "What are you planning?" Plantago Seed doubted. "Keep chasing and you'll know." Because Plantago Seed and the others had just turned around from being in the front for an interception to chasing from behind. At this moment, they hadn't yet experienced how tyrannical ambition used Ott to control the goblin merchant's move path. Their morale was still high. However, this only lasted for a short moment. After Herb Garden chased for a while, they were finally also all shocked by that sort of Ott move path method. After trying left and right to no avail, Plantago Seed heavily announced, "2 players in a team. Start killing tyrannical ambitions players." Although Blue Brook Guild's players had already given up, they still casually followed them to watch the excitement. Seeing how Herb Garden did the same as them and split up to kill tyrannical ambitions players, they all suddenly felt great. Tusk, 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 tusk. The crowd was filled with these sort of sounds. After 5 minutes, Plantago Seed sent Blue River a message. "UFC Cur, why didn't you say so earlier?" Clearly, they had also discovered that they had been tricked. "If I said it, would you have believed me?" Blue River replied. Plantago Seed muttered to himself and then replied seriously, "I definitely wouldn't have." "Then that's that," Blue River said. "What do we do now? Are you guys going to give up?" Plantago Seed. "Yeah," Blue River said. I don't really believe you," Plantago Seed said. "UFC Cur," Blue River said helplessly. Herb Garden's players once again gathered together dejectedly for a while. Blue Brook Guild wasn't far from them. The one that were very far from them was the Goblin Merchant. Of those other assortment of guilds and players, the ones with skill had already seen that Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild had given up. These 2 big guilds had skill and were organized too, yet they hadn't fared well at all. So what could these second-rate guilds and other random players do? At this moment, if everyone united together, there might still be a chance. But who would lead them? Plantago Seed grew restless. He moved in front of Blue River and directly said, "If we can't kill it, how can we just let tyrannical ambition easily take it? If we all unite together, it doesn't matter who takes the first kill. In any case, it better not be tyrannical ambition's name. It's just a goblin merchant." "Is there any point in making such a big scene?" Blue River said. Plantago Seed thought. There really was no point. This was the smallest wild boss. If tyrannical ambition won over it, it didn't mean anything. There was still a long road ahead of them. "You're always unwilling to," Plantego Seed said. "Then you go ahead, it's not like I'm stopping you," Blue River said. "FC Kerr, using so much effort won't do a lot of good. I'm not going to do it on my own." Plantego Seed said the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 79 Chapter 79. Changing Spring. The hunting for the Goblin Merchant started off exciting, but ended peacefully. Once Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden gave up, the other guilds with skill all got a clue and decided to not waste any more time. The remaining random players still didn't understand the situation and refused to give up. They ended up assisting tyrannical ambition in outputting damage. Finally, when tyrannical ambition was announced as the Goblin Merchant's first killers, Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden were extremely tranquil. To be tagged as a guild, it meant that the members of the first kill didn't consist of members from outside the guild. However, Lord Grimm had only recently left Blue Brook Guild, and 5 days hadn't passed yet, so he couldn't join tyrannical ambition. Clearly, when the boss fell, he left the party and naturally wouldn't appear on the leaderboards, keeping tyrannical ambition pure. Blue River despised this point because they all understood clearly that Lord Grimm's contributions to tyrannical ambition, killing off the Goblin Merchant, were very large. Blue River believed that usage of ought to control the boss's move path was simply not possible for tyrannical ambition's own players to have come up. This was because if it wasn't possible for their Blue Brook Guild to have come up with such a plan, then without a doubt, the similar-leveled tyrannical ambition definitely wasn't capable either. They completely relied on Lord Grimm's leading. Blue River had already thoroughly believed that Lord Grimm's strength was on a completely different level than theirs. He was a great expert that surpassed normal players like them. With such a strength, how could he be a nobody? Which expert created this low-level account? Blue River obviously couldn't put Lord Grimm as a new player. This sort of valiant leading meant that he had to have incredible knowledge of the game. It wasn't possible for him to be a new player. "Brother," Blue River opened up his friend's list and calmly sent a message to Lord Grimm. "How long do you think it'll take for you to reach level 23? Everyone cares so much about this issue," Ye Xiu replied. Blue River wasn't surprised. The reason everyone cared about this problem so much was simple. At level 23, he could enter the Boneyard Dungeon. Everyone was waiting for him to level up and then invite him to set a new record. Today, tyrannical ambition stole the Goblin Merchant and had gotten a taste of success. They must have also recognized this great expert's value. "I don't know either. Keep playing and we'll see," Ye Xiu replied. "You have to ask us for the Boneyard Dungeon," Blue River said. "Let's discuss this later." Ye Xiu didn't answer it. Blue River was desperate. He had already predicted that these great guilds would fight desperately for Lord Grimm in order to break and maintain records in the 10th server. Because he had seen Lord Grimm's calmness and intellect for himself, he was afraid that Lord Grimm had become an expensive mercenary. He didn't have much confidence in controlling this situation. Blue River kept thinking and temporarily logged out of the game. He inserted a different card, logging in as the high-leveled Blue Bridge Spring Snow. At this time, in the Heavenly Domain, all of the players were bustling about and actively using their renewed dungeon entries. But once Blue Bridge Spring Snow went online, he still attracted a lot of the guild's attention. This was one of the guild's 5 great experts. Moreover, wasn't he supposed to be in the 10th server? Why did he suddenly run here? The first one to send a message to Blue River was Blue Brook Guild's leader, Changing Spring. The message was very simple. 4 big question marks. "Busy?" Blue River asked. "Dungeon," meaning that he was currently in a dungeon. "Let's talk after you're out," Blue River said. "Urgent?" "It's not urgent, but I need to talk with you." Wait, Changing Spring's messages were always this concise, but this definitely wasn't because he had few words to say. He was simply too lazy to type it out. This guy's hand speed was extremely fierce. He was also obsessed over it. He intentionally did a few useless movements to increase his hand speed and also didn't want to waste movements on chatting. His most famous moment was when someone raged at Changing Spring in the World Channel. In the end, Changing Spring was clearly online, but he never responded. For a great guild leader like him, this sort of action wasn't proper. Even if he was too lazy to argue with the guy, he was still the guild leader. Being raged on by someone on the World Channel made the entire guild feel like they were losing their dignity. The guild members looked for him to respond, but Changing Spring said he had already responded. Everyone was depressed. Later, when they opened the World Channel and looked carefully, they unexpectedly found it. In the heap of messages in the World Channel, Changing Spring responded with a total of 3 letters. GFY. TL, GFY equals go FCK yourself. The entire guild kneeled and bowed up and down in worship. From then on, GFY became Blue Brook Guild's unsurpassed reply to other people's rage at them. They continued to use it to this day. Blue River had gotten used to Old Spring's style. He didn't say anything else and waited. After 10 minutes passes, Changing Spring sent a message. Where? Mount Brook City. Mount Brook City was one of the big cities in the heavenly domain. Because the name had the word Brook in it, Blue Brook Guild stationed their guild there. After a short while, Changing Spring hurried over. The two players met. Changing Spring didn't leave anything out. Did something happen? A great expert appeared in the 10th server, Blue River said. How good? Changing Spring was amazed. Blue River had impatiently ran back to report to him just because of this expert. I can't tell how good he is, Blue River said. What class? Still hasn't changed classes, Blue River said. Hasn't changed classes. Yeah, he's learned skill from many different classes. It's as if he's playing unspecialized, Blue River said. Changing Spring laughed. If he's unspecialized, then of course his early levels are strong. His advantage in the number of skills he has is too prominent. But later on, without the damage from mid to high level skills, he won't be able to keep up. He also needs too many weapons. The heavy weight would impact his speed. Moreover, once he reached level 50, there's no way to play anymore. Who still plays unspecialized? I also thought this when I first saw him, but this guy's strength isn't here. I admit to the skills advantage in the early levels, but from this guy's playing speed to theorycrafting to leading to coordination, they're all extremely strong, Blue River said. To play unspecialized in this day and age, of course this guy has a comprehensive knowledge of the game. But Changing Spring said this, and also felt that this sort of explanation was too far-fetched. Someone with just a comprehensive knowledge of the game wouldn't move Blue River like this. Currently, in the 10th server, he took 3 first kills in the beginner village. Because of his participation in the Frost Forest dungeon, our party set the new record. Because of his participation in the Goblin Merchant hunt, the first kill was grabbed by Tyrannical Ambition. The Blood Gunner first kill. He brought a party of random players and stole it right from under the 3 great guilds' eyes. Blue River felt these accomplishments were already sufficient in convincing him. He's played with us, and also helped Tyrannical Ambition, and then stole the Blood Gunner away right from under the 3 great guilds' eyes. Which side is he from? Changing Spring didn't understand. He's not from any side. I've tried to rope him in, but he's not interested. From what I can see, this guy wants to be hired like this. He'll raise the prices extremely high and then earn a fortune, Blue River said. This guy's a little strange. What's his name? Lord Grim. Lord Grim, is there an expert with such a name in this server? Changing Spring was at a loss. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God Chapter 80, A Guild Leader's Troubles, never heard of it. Blue River accompanied Changing Spring and was at a loss too. If there really is such a person, then I'll come over sometime and see for myself, Changing Spring said. Okay, wait until he's level 23 and I'll make an appointment to set a new record in the Boneyard. You should come when the time comes, Blue River said. He's not level 23 yet. Changing Spring was surprised. Still 21. Blue River was a little embarrassed on behalf of Lord Grimm. No matter what was said, levels in a game would always be a type of symbol. As the 10th server's most popular expert, with levels as such an important indicator to normal people, this made people like Blue River, who was almost level 25, speechless. This, I definitely have to see him for myself if there's a chance, Changing Spring said. Then I'll call you over next time, Blue River said. Okay. Changing Spring nodded his head. Although he didn't say it directly, he already understood Blue River's purpose for coming here. Blue River wanted to know what the true guild leader's decision on what to do with this expert, on whether or not to fight for him with everything they had. After casually chatting for a bit, Changing Spring left. Blue River habitually admired his high-leveled account. Right when he was about to go offline and leave, he suddenly heard a voice he didn't like. "Oh, old Blue, why did you come over? How unlucky." He had only come back for such a short amount of time, and he unfortunately ran into this guy. Blue River sighed and turned around. He immediately saw Poplar Beach, this extravagant name, as well as that full body of extravagant equipment. "Nothing much. I had a bit of business to do here," Blue River replied indifferently. "If you have so much time, why don't we compare notes in the arena?" Poplar Beach was clearly concerned about the previous unfinished duel. "No time. I still need to go back to the new server to dungeon." Blue River crisply rejected him. "It won't take that long." Poplar Beach seemed to like controlling his voice to sound luxurious. From this guy's name to his equipment, they were all extremely extravagant. Naturally, the actual meaning of his words was suggesting he could easily dispatch Blue River. Blue River was a person who was worried about losing face, so he was immediately angered. His blood was boiling, and he had the heart to immediately teach this guy a lesson, but then he suddenly heard a voice. "Blue Bridge, shouldn't you hurry up?" Blue River turned around, and he didn't know when, but Changing Spring had come back. "I'm going." Blue River responded and didn't bother with Poplar Beach, immediately logging out. Changing Spring had come back to get him out of trouble. Blue River clearly understood this. As for Poplar Beach, many players in the guild knew about his pressuring. Although the current rumor was that the guild leader had sent Blue River over to pioneer in the 10th server in preparation to give Poplar Beach a position, Blue River clearly understood that one aspect of Changing Spring's action was because he didn't want to see this sort of struggle between him and Poplar Beach. This was because for this type of struggle, no matter who won, the loser would lose a lot of face, and it was very possible that the loser would leave the guild. This would be like being forced to leave. It would definitely arouse many people's sympathies and would cause a lot of people to lose hope in the guild. The shock caused by this probably wouldn't be small. After all, Poplar Beach and Blue River represented the powers between Blue Brook Guild's new and old players. As for the other aspect, Changing Springs covertly helped Blue River keep his position. At a glance, Blue River looked as if he had been kept away from the Heavenly Domain's core, but in the 10th server, Blue River was in charge. Who knew how many newly recruited experts he would find there? Once these players entered the Heavenly Domain, it'd be hard to say if those players would even put Changing Spring in their eyes, Poplar Beach even more so. Sending him to the new server was letting Blue River develop his foundation. Banishment or whatever, that type of thinking was too naive. Blue River clearly understood this because this was something Changing Spring had calmly explained to him. He had even told Blue River more directly that if Blue River PK'd with Poplar Beach, he wasn't optimistic for Blue River. He believed that if the two fought for 3 rounds, then Blue River would only have a 30% chance of winning. Blue River was helpless. He really wasn't confident in beating Poplar Beach. Now it seemed that Changing Spring saw this even more clearly. Blue River, his heart like a mirror, saw Changing Spring suddenly turn back to help him out of the situation. In his heart, he was deeply moved by his attentiveness. As a result, he didn't bother arguing with Poplar Beach and directly went offline. Thinking of this, in that moment he logged out. Blue River suddenly had a weird thought arise. He really wanted to see the terrified look on Poplar Beach's face when he was completely suppressed by Lord Grim. This thought wasn't too good. Blue River hit his head. No matter what happened, Poplar Beach was still a fellow guild member. Although they had some enmity towards each other, how could he let an outsider make him lose face? But he really did look forward to it. Blue River discovered that he was trying to cheat his own heart. After letting out 2 long sighs, he put his Blue River account card in and returned to the 10th server. Right when he went online, someone from his guild called him over to dungeon. Blue River saw that he was almost level 25. His heart suddenly dropped. He had forgotten something. Thinking, he immediately looked for Lord Grim on his friends list. "When do you want to clear Frost Forest with us again?" Frost Forest's clear record wasn't at its limit. The several players online were about to hit level 25. After switching their equipment with level 25 ones, that was the moment when they could achieve Frost Forest's final record. However, even if they wore level 25 equipment, if they wanted to copy Lord Grim's method of one-wave rush, then although they could do everything else, pulling the monsters like Lord Grim wasn't possible for them. They all stealthily tried it before. Blue River had been thinking of clearing the boneyard when Lord Grim hit level 23 and forgot that he hadn't completely settled Frost Forest's record. This, Ye Xiu's reply was a bit hesitant. "Did someone already make an appointment?" Blue River feinted. "I've made an appointment already," Ye Xiu said helplessly. "Is it tyrannical ambition again?" Blue River said gloomily. "It is. Brother, I asked for an appointment at the boneyard, but you told me that you'll talk about it later." "Why is that when they ask for one you agree?" Blue River's cheeks streamed with tears. "The appointments you make are all things I can't do yet. I can do Frost Forest today night," Ye Xiu said. Blue River was helpless. He decided to watch Lord Grim's level attentively. Right when Lord Grim reached level 23, he would immediately make an appointment for boneyard. Frost Forest. Blue River felt a little pained. They had just set the record not long ago, and tonight it would be broken without a doubt. Or maybe not, Blue River suddenly thought. Although their levels would all be level 25, their equipment might not keep pace with them so quickly. Only now did Blue River and the others have a full suit of level 20 purple equipment. That was also only because beginner village dungeons could be cleared without a limit. In the process of dungeoning until level 20, they naturally found a lot of good equipment. But now, although level 25 equipment dropped in both Frost Forest and Boneyard, purple equipment didn't have a high drop rate. It had only been 2 days, each dungeon had only been cleared 4 times. Would they be able to completely arm a party? He calculated this, but Blue River was still gloomy. Although there weren't as many level 25 purple weapons as level 21s, there was still enough to arm a party. Their Blue Brook Guild could, so tyrannical ambition should be able to too. Sigh.